T minus 30 seconds. T minus 20 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Shout out to USARK and all USARK members. If you don't know what USARK is, don't be ashamed. Just go ahead and click the third link in the description below. See what USARK is all about, okay? You never know when legislations are going to hit your backyard, so that's why it's very important to consider becoming a USARK member today. These numbers really do matter, and they look at it for consideration when it comes to battling legislation. So first and foremost, thank you, Phil Goss. Thank you to anybody out there who partners up and volunteers with USARK organization. Thank you for anyone out there who's a USARK member. And if you can't become a USARK member today, please talk about it on your platforms. Let your neighbors know, let all your pet stores know what USARK is here for, and it's here to fight for our animal rights. Thank you to every USARK member and USARK supporter out there. True.
Okay, so much better. Not that I don't like doing the USARK intro, but it's nice someone else does it for me. All right, well, let's get this rolling, guys. Jeff Byers. Oh, I guess I am doing the USARK. That's my fault. I said I would. Who doesn't love USARK, guys? I don't know if you guys have seen. Stuff's popping up in Illinois. Stuff's popping up every day. Let's not force each other's hands on doing this. Let's be responsible and contribute any way we can. But now, with that being said, let's get rolling in this. Jeff Byers this week. Big fan. Good friend. Are you there, buddy?
I'm here.
All right, perfect. She's going to pump us on. Nice.
All right.
Oh, Jeff, I've wanted to do one with you for a long time. We've talked about this. I've been saying that a lot to a lot of people lately. I know you listen to my stuff, but I mean that when I say it to you.
Well, I have a funny policy. I do not reach out to people to do podcasts. I won't do it. If they come to me and say, hey, do you want to come talk? I would love to. People that know me know I talk too much. But I'm not going to, hound people about getting on their show.
No, what is it? I think it's the expert and the idiot. I've been I don't know why. He's on my algorithm. He pops up in my feed. I haven't asked to go on his podcast, but I kind of sent him a little message when are you going to slip in my DMs? And, we're both being a little bashful. He's creeping. Yeah, he's almost up to episode 69. If there was ever an episode to have me on, it'd be episode 69.
Yeah, 420 is way far away. It's got to be 69.
Too far. But, I will say, same thing. I was on Mike with Reptile Collectors. Am I saying that right? And
Herp Collectors.
Herp Collectors. I'm sorry. I should have known that. I did a podcast with him where I kind of nonchalantly reached out to Chris Eaton and said, hey, Snakes and the Fat Man, I've always wanted to do it. What are we waiting for? It was a great episode. Love doing it. But no, I'm not one to ask. But I guess twice I've asked, so maybe I'm one to ask.
You occasionally ask.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Yeah, when it benefits both parties, I feel. But no, I'm going to do a lot more this year, though. I'll be honest with you. But you know what? Here's the thing, Jeff. You know the way I get rolling with a lot of these things. What was the moment? You being a reptile guy, did it go from a guy with maybe a couple tanks in his house to all of a sudden learning the ins and out of the industry?
I was 13 years old, and I got a work permit from my junior high to work at the local pet store. I was fascinated by snakes and lizards and stuff, and I could not get enough. I bought the pair of anoles out of the back of Boy's Life magazine that we all saw decades and decades ago, you remember? And, went, looking for reptiles, and, we caught water snakes and snapping turtles and all kinds of stuff, and just was constantly trying to find reptiles.
Yeah. Was that all in Oklahoma, by the way?
Pardon?
Was that in Oklahoma?
Pretty much everywhere I could. My parents were super amazing about we went to Las Vegas one year, and I literally planned out, like, I said, well, hey, we're going to stop in Ruidoso. Okay, cool. I would go to the field guide and see like all the stuff I could find in Ruidoso, New Mexico on the way. And I had a 6-foot Western red coach whip in my pocket in the Bellagio hotel, like, check-in when
Nice.
I was like 15 years old, because I didn't want to leave it in the car. And then my dad drove me back out to the desert to let it go and take some photos when I'm like 15, 16 years old. It was
No,
pretty cool.
I did.
They were very forgiving about a lot of things.
Yeah, my parents were always really good about it too. I always talk about, like, when I was in Madison, Wisconsin, I was like 7, 8 years old. They let me take a bucket out in the woods all day. I come back with turtles, salamanders, snakes, and I think I had like 6 or 7 6-gallon or 10-gallon aquariums in my kitchen, and every one had like a different thing in it. I'd have it in for a while. I'd take it back, let it go, get something new. But I did a Florida trip with my buddy CJ. And when we were down there, I think I was like 15 also. I caught the biggest water snake I'd ever seen in my life. So I put it in my tackle box and checked it into the plane. And that thing got all the way home. I know. Shh. Don't tell anybody. But, so I get this thing home and I set it up. And then I ended up having babies. But no, that was, I think I want to say I was like 14 years old also.
Well, back then, nobody cared about what you brought on the plane. We went to, this sounds terrible, a wedding or a funeral in Louisiana when I was a teenager, and I don't remember what it was. But the Econo Lodge in Lake Charles, Louisiana, I was able to catch 50 Mediterranean house geckos on the hotel in 2 nights.
Oh,
And
nice.
so I took the cardboard boxes off of the hotel maid's cart. She gave them to me willingly, but
Yeah.
I put like 1,000 holes in each box, and I put 25 geckos in each box, and I sold them to the pet store that I was working at when I got back for like $2 a piece. So
Nice.
I made $100 off of, invasive geckos I caught at the hotel.
Yeah. Well, I love those stories. Yeah, I talk a lot of the Florida guys about that back in
Brought
the.
those on the plane.
Yeah.
They were sitting next to my feet. They
Yeah.
asked, like, what are those? Like, oh, it's a bunch of little geckos. Like, okay, cool. Like, nobody.
Fucking Bin Laden, buddy, really messed up all this for us, didn't he?
Right? Some bitch.
Son of a bitch. Now I can't go through anything with that full body scan, man. Like, I even if you got a little sweaty spot on the inside of your thigh, I'm getting frisked like every time I go to the airport.
When I was in Schiphol in Europe, I got frisked very effectively. I invited the guy to breakfast, and I got the whole TSA group to laugh, so it's pretty good.
I like that. I like that. I prefer a guy, honestly. I don't want to be weird, but if someone's gonna
I
frisk,
want them thorough, damn it! Like, pack the boys, like, get behind the deal, and like, just do a good
I
job.
want to know what he's dealing with. I want him to get in there and do it right. Now, not if it's like cancer or not, because to me, I feel like my balls always feel lumpy, but who knows? I don't go to the doctor. I hope I don't die from testicular cancer.
You rely on friends. That's what friends are for.
Me and Chad don't hang out enough. I really wanted to go to that North Carolina show this weekend, and just couldn't make it work, man. 13-hour drive down there. I love the idea of it. I love Charlotte. I'm sure the show's going to be amazing. I plan on getting a report back from everybody after this weekend. But you guys, when you guys do your show circuit, what's the furthest you guys were traveling over the years, other than, of course, going to Japan?
Oh, well, that's a long time ago. Our show circuit now consists of Tinley and Dallas. But, back in the day, I think Bob and I definitely went to more shows than Mike and I have. But, we went to Ham, we went to Houghton, Snake Day. I've been to Europe like 50 times for one show or another over there. I was almost ready to go to a Japan show with Bob years ago. That didn't happen, but almost. Like, it was that close. Lots of Kansas shows, Texas shows. That was kind of the extent of it.
Yeah.
Mike sent me and Willis to do St. Louis, like maybe the first or the second St. Louis, and we didn't do that well, so we never went back.
It's tough, man. I love the NARBC brand. The St. Louis show. One obstacle I know they had was I think the first show was opening weekend for rifle season for deer. And a lot of people scout their spots, really care about getting out there for that first deer. So
Definitely.
getting grown men to come out that weekend, I think it hurt us a little bit.
Yeah.
Dallas show, I heard there was some empty tables. I know there were some people that talked about not going back. What was your thoughts on this past one?
This past one, we actually did better than the last two Dallas shows and maybe the last Arlington. But I was really whoring myself out like quite a bit at this show, like really, really pushing deals on people if I could help it. That's at a show like that's my function is like I need you to want this snake, and I'm gonna try to talk you into it. Of course, it being the right snake that fits the consumer's needs and all that. I'm not gonna steer them into something that doesn't help them with whatever project they're trying to do. But yeah, that was my perception. Dallas, I wish they would find a different venue outside of Dallas. That city ordinance stuff really is causing a problem, I think. And supposedly like they were working on getting it amended or whatever. It's just not happening fast enough.
That was kind of the same hang up on like the Houston show, the 8-foot rule.
Yeah.
Some people kind of ignored it, but I'm really not one to ignore something like that because the day I ignore it is the day I get busted. And
Yeah, and then they take everything off your table because they can, and we don't want that either.
no, 100%. No, I agree. It really was a little bit of a shock to the system for the NARBC show down in Texas when they had to change venues, which, it's really unfortunate they decided to use that other building for an art gallery now, I want to say.
It's an art gallery indefinitely now to host traveling art exhibits.
Right.
So somebody like rented it out forever.
Gosh,
or something.
not that they would make an exception for a bunch of reptile people, but really, it just shows you just changing something like going a town over in a state. Because what we're talking, there's 30 minutes, 40 minutes in between the locations.
Yeah, tops.
Changes the whole dynamic of the show.
Well, it's a different city. It's different ordinances. Like everything was pretty lax in Arlington. In the 10 years that we'd been going to that show, and in fact, Mike, Bob, and Webb Tilton started that show. It was the Dallas Metroplex Reptile Show. We handed it over to Potter and Bob Ashley because Mike and Bob really just wanted to have a show like that close to home. Because, we didn't go to Daytona every time and didn't want to go to LA every time and all that. They wanted a big show close, so they made one.
Yeah.
And then pretty happily handed it off to Bob and Brian. And like they chose that, and it was the same venue that it's been. And they chose that based on the usability, location. Like they put a lot of thought into that venue, and it worked for many years.
Oh yeah, I don't remember. Do you know roughly when the first year they put on a show there was?
The first NARBC or the first Bob and Mike show?
Tell me the Bob and Mike, and then I want to hear the NARBC.
I have a name badge from the Dallas Metroplex Reptile Show somewhere. It's been some years though.
This was early 2000s.
Years? Maybe longer.
Maybe longer.
It might be at least 15, possibly 16 years. Like there's some people that may know, that may remember that were there, but I'd have to actually find that badge.
That's okay.
Mike would know, but he's not here.
I was curious. I think I remember about a decade ago at that show, and I don't mean this in a negative way, but it was a much smaller show in Arlington. I jokingly said there was Repticons I had been to in the United States that were roughly the same size as the Arlington show for NARBC. But over the last, I think it was 2018 to 2020 maybe, it went from that divider wall being there to, I think, removing a divider wall and really pushing more tables off to the side in a good way of expansion. And I feel like that show could always hang. I really loved going to Arlington. I made a lot of money in Arlington. My
Yep.
BOA sales in Arlington were amazing. I did do a few good sales at the first Dallas show, and honestly, I will probably go to another one in the future. I don't know why I haven't been there, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Well, there's now Bob Vu's show and Troy's show, and some of these. I think sometimes like, well, I'm doing Troy's show in 2 weeks. Like I'm gonna skip Dallas or something.
Yeah.
Something to that effect, or somebody's out of town and like, well, if Justin's not gonna be there, like I don't really want to go either, and I don't know. We go no matter what to the Dallas shows. Like there would have to be some serious like something to not go.
I mean, it's an NARBC in your backyard.
Oh yeah,
It'd be
3 hours, 3 hour drive.
Yeah. No,
Not
kind of backyard. But no, and talking about like the Troy show and the Bob show. I love the Bob show. I thought it went really well. I love the venue. Had a real like Tinley feel to it. The hotel being connected. And the Troy shows, I actually haven't made it to one of the Troy shows yet. And not because I don't want to. They got a Kansas City one coming up next month. And where I thought Kansas City would actually be a bad show for them because there's just so many Kansas City shows already.
right.
I heard it was amazing.
That's good.
I talked to
That's
William Philippek. He said he sold a ton of ball pythons. He was surprised he didn't sell his rare stuff and his weird stuffs he works with.
right. Carpets and whatnot.
It's anything along those lines. But ball python sales were really good. I think Ball Shed said they had a really good show there. Most people I talked to said it was a really good Kansas City. So,
Well, we got invited to be doing that show with the caveat of not bringing ball pythons. They wanted to showcase the incubators and the heat panels, and I'm sure we could bring geckos and colubrids and stuff, but they were trying to limit the number of ball python breeders, which I get, but
yeah.
ball pythons for us is what pays the bills. Like incubators are nice, green trees are nice, and black dragons are nice, but ball pythons is our bread and butter. So
Yeah.
it's hard to do a show and leave 500 ball pythons at home,
No, and I'm sure that'll change over time. But, I think Reptilian Nation did the same thing. They were just really careful about how many people they let into the same species.
Yeah.
And, you could arguably say that about leopard gecko breeders. You don't want too many crested gecko guys there. I understand nothing's going to
Yeah.
arrive with so many ball python
It
guys on
happens.
the show, but
It happens. And we don't have like, I tell people that we do like 80-20. We do 80% like your basic pet shop introductory type of ball pythons. And then that other 20% is like the really cool stuff that I get to dork out on at the shop and like trying to like advance the collection and occasionally be able to sell something that's like really neat and amazing.
well,
So we're occupying a different niche than a lot of those guys are for the most part.
no, I mean, you guys do have diversity in your collection. Actually, that's a really cool topic because I don't know a lot about the way it's gone in Wilbanks' collection over the years, but, ball pythons have always really been a staple. What other species did you guys bring in, maybe didn't stick with, but at least tried for a little while?
Well, we're breeding green tree pythons with some regularity. Like we're not pumping out like Bill Siegel numbers or anything, but like a clutch or two a year has been what we're so far like trying to keep up with. And then black dragon water monitors, turns out as long as you feed them and have a nice big space for them, they're really easy.
Yeah.
You just got to get over that. I think our run time on a clutch is like 220 days. So it's silly long, but the thing of it is once she gets going and she's laying a clutch of eggs every like 12 weeks or something, like what I'm not like a black dragon guru or anything. I don't know like this exact numbers, but once you get like the clutches going, then you have this succession of babies every couple months hatching. So that's kind of nice. We breed a few colubrids, Mexican black king snakes, couple different kinds of Cal Kings, a couple milk snakes, Hondos, stuff like that. Basic stuff.
The-
Rainbow boas. We just sold out our adult group of. We had some T plus rainbow boas that were kind of cool, but we decided to move a different direction for the space that they were occupying. So,
Well, I'll be honest, that's kind of a bummer because that was always one of those animals that really stood out to me at the show because you don't see those very often.
a bunch of rainbows, yeah, you don't.
No.
Not
Even the T positives, T negatives, especially with T positives, you see them occasionally, but again, your guys, I think it was the first time I saw them in person.
Yeah, we're not gonna do those anymore.
It's a bummer. The monitor thing, you talk about just feed them a lot, give them a good amount of space. I remember going to Nerd's place,
Yeah,
and
I've been a long time ago.
nice. So we're in one of the monitor rooms, and he's got a plate of like rodents thawing out, and then he opens the door to the monitor cage. He's like, "Yeah, just put your fist in its face," and then when it realizes you're not food, just scratch the bottom of its chin. And I'm sitting here staring at these rodents, and I'm like, "Okay, I'll give it a shot." And honestly, really sweet animal, really unique. I think it's definitely a species that you have to really you could be a beginner and only have that and that be your thing, but
Yeah,
I wouldn't be a beginner doing a bunch of ball pythons and just assume you're going to incorporate black dragons into your collection.
right. Well, we're actually making some cages right now to get some albinos, not one's het black and a couple are the visual like T plus albino or there something. I don't know. We don't have them yet. I'll know more about it when we have them. But we're doing well with the one pair of black dragons, and that they're super easy. Uh, I was worried about the male when he was little. He was a dickhead, so I was, trying very hard to get him chilled out so that he wouldn't be too much of a handful now. But fast forward to now, and he's like a big puppy. He's a food motivated puppy, but he's a big puppy,
Well,
and I
that's
sit there and love on him, and give him scritches and drowned rat or something, and he's totally happy.
nice. What do you know how long it takes him to get to sexual maturity?
I want to say, I think for about 2 years, 3 years, something.
Okay.
We didn't like hammer them. Like we just let them do their thing, and I've got Mike has Kevin on speed dial, and I have Shane Costello. Shout out to SC Constrictors about monitor care because like they know more than me, so I'm fine admitting that. And so I can message Shane and be like, hey, like, it's doing this. What does this mean? And, like, interpreting monitor to me
Yeah.
has been vital, having peers that we can, consult.
No, I think and just so you know, the reason I asked about age, we were talking about like your blacks being het for albino you're getting in the black dragons. Um
I think it's an albino het black, but yeah, same.
I haven't seen many double visuals for that project other than did he maybe do T negative, T positive at one point?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what all Chris Brown did. I don't know. I don't know everything Kevin has now. I think Kevin probably has the biggest number of those, but I don't know that for fact. I'm sure he's working on like a snow dragon or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Somebody has to be. I mean, you kind of have to, right?
Yeah. Blizzard, maybe we'll call it a blizzard. I think it should be pretty pure white.
Big O damn blizzard lizard. I don't know.
Yeah, I like that. No, he may have those, and I just may not have seen them. I feel like something like that would really circulate on Facebook really well, but I don't stalk him as much as I used to. I think I stalked him more when he had a website, less with him on social media.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, he caught some shit with Donnie doing his social media, and now he's trying to rebuild it himself and do videos and stuff, and be more informative than the previous style of channel that they were doing. So The dude's amazing. Like he has so much reptile stuff jammed in his head. It's incredible.
No, I've always been a huge fan of Kevin's. Honestly, going there and seeing it in person, absolutely loved it. This I don't even know if there's a gist. No, I've always thought that he has a point of view on the hobby that most people don't have. I think,
Definitely.
it thinks outside the box. Just has a very creative mind.
He can get in their little heads and like help them think and understand how they're doing something better than anyone I can think of.
Yeah, cage design for different species. I think he puts a lot of thought into that,
Yep.
especially with the monitors. He had interesting cages for his emerald tree boas when I was there.
Hmm.
What was another good shout out? He had his educational room, and when his dwarf Cayman was gravid, I think he would throw like a ton of cypress mulch in there and put her in there, and she would actually create her big nest mound and have her eggs in there. And you
Huh.
know, what a cool thing in Cincinnati, or no, New Hampshire.
Yeah. Plaistow, New Hampshire.
Yeah, but no, I've always liked what he's done, and he's always had some of the more unique animals. Certain people just tend to get the phone calls when they know that you're going to get a sale as soon as the call's done. And I feel like he's had some really awesome opportunities over the years, and he's gotten a lot of really unique animals because of it.
Yeah.
But so you mainly rough scales. You do are no, I'm sorry. Let me try that again.
Well,
The pythons you do every year.
I've got rough scales. I've got jungle carpets,
That was crazy.
and
Yeah.
then a few ball pythons.
All right. Well, what I was asking with your rough scales, you threw me off because when I said rough scales, you looked at me like you didn't have rough scales. Are
I was
you
just
putting them
wondering
together?
what you were going to ask.
Well, I think you bred them the last two previous seasons, right? Successfully.
3. She didn't go this year. I think I put the mail in too late because she's been going like a little bit earlier each year, and I've just gotten really lucky and noticed her in the cage and be like, "You look slightly fluffy. I'm putting a boy with you," and I put the mail with her, and they lock up, and then I get eggs.
Nice, nice.
Very easy. Uh, it's unfortunate. Like to me, they're pretty, and to like Morelia aficionados, they're very pretty. But like, they're not enough that like they're ever going to be like a really mainstream animal that everybody's going to want.
um, I
I
don't
think
think
that's I think anyway.
no, and I don't disagree with that. But also, I think that the availability versus price point is kind of perfect for that community, and where I don't think anybody's ever going to expand enough where they could flood the market with a lot of those animals.
No,
I think it's in a good sweet spot, and even if some new people did get into it, I don't think that community will be affected in a negative way at all.
I love them, and I'll tell you, I don't want like 10 pairs of them. Like, just there's no real need for that. I would have like another adult pair just to be able to offer like unrelated pairs of babies. But beyond that would be the amount of rough scales I would ever personally feel like I need myself.
How important do you think is adding new bloodlines to stuff like you're talking if you're not actually incorporating mutations into it? Because I've heard
Well,
Levinson say you can go lots of generations before you see any issues.
yeah, you can. There's certain things though, and he knows a lot of stuff. I'm not gonna argue with him, but the original group of rough scales that came into the country was very small, and I think they were even a litter. And then Casey Lasik has one that's not related to that group, so he's the only one that has 2 lines of Carinata. So it's just like it's kind of some desire to like know that you're not breeding brother and sister if you can help it. And sure, reptiles are designed to handle some of that, but like, do you want to be the one that finds out where the line is? I don't.
No, that's fair, and I don't know exactly where that line would be. My only experience with an Australian species over the years has been blue-tongued skinks, and where we have seen certain things come up on certain line breeding colors, like sometimes in the early stages with the red stuff, we'd see just a little bit of an underbite. And
Yeah.
you know, in some crested gecko breeding, you get to a certain point where you see a little underbite, and typically it gets shunned by the community. I think the lack of availability in the skink community, it wasn't made a big deal, but of course breeders are still looking to improve on that.
And you know, with the rough scales where they come from, I don't have the map in front of me, but it's like one valley or one canyon that's, you know, it's big, but it's not so big that, you know, there's this ton of diversity. They're all like down in this valley in this canyon, and that's where they live.
Yeah.
So how diverse were they to begin with before humans actually found a few and got them out of the canyon?
No, and I think about that with Hog Island boas too over the years.
Yeah, little small locality from a little teeny place.
Yeah, and
Like,
I
it's
don't know
not
what
diverse.
no, and I don't know if I'm completely wrong on this, but I heard there's only a couple like good water sources there, like a waterfall and something else. That when you're actually there, you can go to one area and have a chance of seeing a lot of them. So they're not. I don't know what their range is there, to be honest with you. They could be in a tight little area.
Hogs?
Yeah, Hog Island boas.
Yeah, I don't know anything about specifically where they're from other than it is a small place.
Fair enough. Fair enough. We should have watched the Dave Kaufman video he did over there. Did you watch that?
Son of a bitch, I didn't. I need to though. But I love his previous videos. Go
Yeah.
Dave.
I did watch it while working. I got to watch it a second time. Shout out to Dave, of course. So I guess we could talk ball pythons a little bit.
All right. Core
no.
species. Ball pythons. Yeah.
All right. So when you first started working with Mike, what was he working with ball python wise? Was he pretty far along, or was it just a lot of super fires?
It was first, I remember when we got the first fires in from Europe. There were 3 lines of fire that we ultimately blended together. We had the original line was from Eric Davies, and that's the first proven line of fire to fire producing a super fire. And then we got another line from Africa, and we got another line from Barchek. And then we kept the 3 lines separate for a couple years, and like, well, let's see what they were: HLE, HLB, and HLA. And so we would breed a HLA to a HLB, and it made super fires, and a HLE to an HLA, and it made super fires. So there was really no point in keeping the lines separate if they did all the same thing, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of super fires. He loves pieds, and so he geeks out on pieds and just wanted to have lots of pieds. And you know, banana hadn't come along yet back then. Here's a flashback for you. Do you remember when Will Slow? No, this was not one of Will's. Okay, so this is when Strictly offered the female banana, I think, on King Snake.
Okay.
20 years ago. And Mike called me and the other guy, David, into his office and said, "Hey, check this out. Isn't this cool?" And we were looking at the female banana. And he's like, "Man, if that was a male, I would buy it right now." It was like 25 grand or something like that.
Yeah.
And he didn't buy it, and Brock Wagner bought it. And so that helped slingshot Brock Wagner forward to the stature that he is today, was getting that snake among some other snakes. But, you know, that was one of those snakes. And Mike could have pulled the trigger on that. And nobody knew anything about the sex linking at all at that point. You know,
Yeah.
Will hadn't said anything. Kevin hadn't said anything. I don't think anybody else would have even known the possibility of the sex linking at that time, when the very first bananas were changing hands.
No, it would have been thought as bad luck, bad odds.
Yeah.
I mean, look at how long it took us to actually realize that Cinnamon and Inchi were allelic. It just seemed like you had great odds every time you bred them because you didn't make any normals. But
Oh, yeah. I love cinnamon inchies. We made so many cinnamon inchy combos. Like, man, like, we don't even get a single normal. This is great.
yeah,
Because it was fucking allelic.
no, we So we had John Carlson on not too long ago, and we were talking a similar story, but the Will Slaw story about getting his banana. And what he was saying is strictly had an animal come in, they called it caramel.
Hmm.
Didn't know what it was, thought it was just another caramel. The deal was made with Will before the animal was received to John Carlson to deliver it. And when John got it in, he's like, man, this isn't a caramel. Like, and of course, baby bananas, they're stunning. For a while there, they're the holy grail in the hobby.
Uh-huh.
But he had it, he hemmed and hawed, still delivered the animal to Will Slaw, and that got him started with the Banana Project. So,
I remember Will made the first banana clowns a long, long, long time ago. You remember? Did you see him at Tinley?
I don't know if I saw him at Tinley. I saw him online.
Yeah. He
Yeah.
brought him to Tinley one year, and it was like 10 people deep anytime trying to get a look at those snakes. And I'm like looking, clawing over people just to like kind of get a glimpse of them over on Will's table
Yeah.
way back then when he brought them. It was amazing to see him in person.
Yeah. I've got a really weird memory for Tinley animals. I remember when Snakekeeper brought bananas, and I want to say it was a banana male het for tri-stripe.
Yeah.
And I want to say it was like $40,000 or $80,000 when they had that animal.
Yeah.
But no, I think they had an end cap at the front. I think Mark and Kimbell were a couple end caps down at that time, and Nerd Reptiles had their end cap all facing the front of the building.
Yeah.
Bummer not to see some of those guys out there anymore.
Bob and Mike used to have one of those end caps that was basically right in front of the door about where Chicago Reptile Houses is now. And this is like 12 years ago,
I
14
remember
years
that.
ago, a long time.
Yeah, you guys brought a bunch.
Shared that.
Yeah, you guys had a bunch of scaleless corn snakes that one year.
Possibly.
Okay, well, I'm going to be able to confirm that because I remember your end capping in that area. I remember Barchek just got a bunch in, and then I think he was the only one who was supposed to have them, and then you guys had a bunch of them on your table.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, they like doing stuff like that.
If you guys work with colubrid projects, do you do that for stateside sales or you do that for your overseas people?
Both.
Okay.
It just depends. We'll sell them to whoever, but the colubrid sales are as good in the U.S. I think as they are. Most of our overseas clients really stick to ball pythons, and if we were exporting green tree pythons, they would probably buy those, but we're not adding those to the master file anytime soon.
Okay. Well, there's plenty of room to sell those in the United States, and
Oh yeah,
I'm
easily.
sure you can export them fine. I mean, they come out of
Oh
farm
yeah, we
here.
can. We have the master file set up for ball pythons, and that's it.
I
So
meant,
he would have to like resubmit some stuff, and I don't know about all that has to be done, but I mean we can file standard CITES paperwork for GTPs if he so chose that he wanted to export some. We're just not really looking to do it that often.
so when I think about shipping things like that, I think just how delicate the animal is and just what transit must be from country to country. But they do pretty good with shipping, though, right?
Yeah, I mean, I have not personally packed green trees for overseas. I mean, I've packed gajillions of ball pythons, berms, retics, whatever. But, and very, very rarely did we have a problem with anything. The biggest problem was post inspection because, U.S. Fish and Wildlife inspects those bags, and they don't inspect every single bag. They'll pick like some random bags, and we found snakes with their necks tied in the bag, and of course it's dead, or they've thrown bags back on top of each other, and it's aided in the suffocation of one or more of those animals in the bottom bag. You never want to do that if you can help it.
Yeah.
So yes, they're not as careful as we are.
Understandable. With all the shows I've done over the years, I feel like the only time I've never really had an issue with anything going wrong with an animal on the way is when they're packed in displays.
Yeah.
The time that wasn't in my favor was when I rented a minivan and I didn't know where the vents in the back were. and it got one of them a little too warm, and I ended up losing 3 or 4 animals on the top.
Yeah.
Styrofoam,
The display pack is usually really good, and that's what we try to do. And we'll have some backstock for a show, but generally about 90% of it's already loaded up in the displays.
Yeah, I think it's the best way to travel with them. I know some people go through the trouble of not going that way, unpacking them afterwards, but I find they do just fine in the display cases.
Yeah, it's a pain to load and unload display cases numerous times throughout the show. You know, we load everything at the shop and price everything and have all the stickers in place and everything, and then we'll have like maybe 100 animals in backstock, and we'll just fill in holes as we sell animals. But pretty much everything is staying in the display, you know, most of the time, and it's way easier.
Yeah, of course. Well, a little more back to like the transformation of just the expansion of Wilbanks' company. So when you guys started doing a lot of pies, a lot of leucistics, focusing on fires, when did you guys start like really going heavy in the Codon game? And when did you guys start caring about clowns?
He cared about clowns pretty early. Uh, like a lot of the introductory stuff, like he had, you know, there was a ghost section, there was a clown section. Didn't have Axanthic to start off with. We've got a good Axanthic collection now. A lot of pied stuff, obviously Superfire and Bell stuff. With clown, you know, early on, just clowns to hets and making regular clowns, and then let's make fire clowns and firefly clowns, and really basic stuff. Then, you know, banana comes in, and banana clowns are great. Like for the money, that is a, what are they now, like $300, 400, something like that.
Probably about that.
They are, for $400. That is a great looking snake, and they look great for a long time. If you upgraded one more gene and you go banana inchy clown, that's an amazing looking snake for the money. And like if somebody's gonna have a pet snake, a $500 banana inchy clown, you know, it's awesome. So we just made the piss out of those kinds of clowns, and unfortunately didn't do a ton of work to always incorporate a new gene. Like now, I'm always trying to get a new gene. Like even if it's not new, it's new to us. Like, this is gonna sound silly. This is gonna sound really silly, and somebody's gonna laugh at me. I am excited about using a Russo het clown this year. Just to get Russo in the clown machine. We have this arsenal of clown stuff, and you know, a few years ago we got Black Pastel into it so that we could chase, you know, Pompeii stuff. Yeah. And whenever I can add a new gene to clown, or to really to anything, like I geek out about it, even if it's really simple.
You guys have the Huffman gene. Have you got Huffman clown stuff yet?
Yeah, maybe.
Okay.
But yeah, we are trying. Here is the problem. I have discovered that our initial Huffman animal was actually a blackhead Huffman, which, not bad. It's a high quality problem, but now it has caused me to have to go back to a bunch of his offspring and be like, okay, are you a blackhead Huffman sugar het clown, or are you just a Huffman sugar? What? Like really dissecting, because everything I knew was from that animal. So I was seeing blackhead stuff too, and didn't realize I was seeing the combination as often as I actually was. So I've had to go backtrack a lot of animals and make some steps to refine them in the future, kind of to get blackhead out of it. But I think we have a blackhead sugar Huffman clown.
Okay. Possibly.
But again, it's from an animal of relation to the mentioned animal that I didn't know what all was actually in this snake until some of the more end results came out later. So, yeah, I mean, we've got Huffman. that's the long answer. We've got Huffman, but getting it into some other stuff. Huffman, I'm actually really excited about because it's untapped. There's not a ton of people working with it. You know, Troy's got some Huffman stuff, and a few other people work the gene with some regularity. But I think there's a lot of potential with Huffman and some of the reactions it has with other things.
No, pulling Black Pastel out and putting Huffman in its place to see what the similar combos do.
Definitely.
Some will be better on the Huffman side.
Definitely.
Yeah, no, I don't think there's a bad idea going that direction. Even though we're talking fire a ton, but like the sulfur stuff. I always like the super sulfur a little more because it had a little more paradoxin in the super form.
Mm-hmm.
But you
Like
still get
yellow?
yeah, you get like big yellow patches. For whatever reason, you just got a lot more sulfur, I feel.
The blotchies. I
The
call
blood.
those blotchies.
Yeah, little speckles in them. But not take away from fire. I love the fire stuff.
Fire makes all that too, but sulfur does seem to make it more often.
Yeah, but would it make any sense to put sulfur in fire's place in a clown project,
Not
or is
really.
it more like adding like a more of a vanilla type to it?
I don't think it would add enough. You know, there's 10 or more lines of fire, you know, ember sauce, Lucifer, fire, lemonback, and like they all do the same thing. And you know, sulfur may throw like more blotchy animals than the other lines, but the end result is about the same. And then disco and vanilla are obviously in the complex too, but how much different are they going to be? And Spark is not even in there, but it looks like it should be in there, but it's not in there. It's really in the yellow belly complex. It does a lot of the same stuff too.
No. And Spark's another one where you can use some of those other genes on the yellow belly complex to make cool stuff. I love Pumas for a while, but they're a bitch to work with. I've seen some
I
cool
am making Puma great again.
Okay, super leopard stuff. I'm moving your direction.
What?
Going super inchy leopards, or how are you going to make them better?
I cannot reveal just yet. I'm sitting on some stuff. See, like I just palped like 5,000 snakes this week, so like I'm getting really excited about like the stuff we're actually gonna have probably on the ground in the coming month or two.
Nice, nice. I don't know how your collection's looking, but I've probably got about 40 clutches in the incubator. I think I'm only pushing like I think I'm only going to be breeding around like 240 females this year. Yeah, because I got it down to about 400 girls at the moment.
Okay.
So most of my stuff's not really developing. Like I got a lot of that early stuff hitting. I did lose some stuff in the move when it came to follicles reabsorbing.
Yeah.
Most of my collection's at about 6 millimeters right now. Are you guys kind of just all over the place? Or you guys all cycle at the same time?
We cycle at the same time. I have got to have some downtime to do babies and make the breeding plan and stuff like that. So we can't breed year round. That would just be insane. But I added some follicle stickers today, but I also added a couple hundred ovulation stickers today of like animals that we knew were in some stage of the process, but now they've definitely ovulated. So some have had the prelays and some are in shed right now. And, we'll have eggs from that girl in a week or, 4 weeks.
Yeah. So you feel like you can palpitate a lot faster than go through the ultrasound, right?
Oh yeah. Like I can, if the snake is cooperative, I can palp a female in probably about 5 seconds.
Okay. Are you guesstimating the size of the pellicle? Do you have like you say like small, medium, large, huge? Like how you doing that?
I do like pea, marble, golf ball,
All right.
and I can feel about the 20 to 25 millimeter mark pretty easily. That's like a ping pong ball, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can feel that. That's easy. And then I can feel them like pea size, like in the little, we call it the string of pearls, is like the little cluster that they start in. But
So
yeah.
when you get to golf ball, are you guys pairing anymore? At golf ball, you know she's gonna ovulate.
At golf ball, I know that she doesn't need another lock, she's probably good. If the male doesn't have anything else to do, like part of the reason to do the palp that I was doing this week was to get some boys home so they can be done and, you know, start putting weight back on for next year.
Yeah.
So if he doesn't have anything else to do, and like one more lock wouldn't hurt her, you know, like when they're about to ovulate, like there's no point, like you're done. But if they're a golf ball, I might throw him in there one more time just to lock it down, you know.
Yeah. You marking your pre-ovulation glows?
With my eyeballs.
Yeah.
I don't like. I will note if I know that she shed that day, like the shed is still moist, or I catch her shedding or something. I'll mark the shed date. But you know, we don't do like extensive record keeping of it. We've got a guy, Dustin, that goes and he checks green dots. Green dots are ones that I have determined have ovulated, and so he checks all the green dots every morning. And I just added like 500 across the building of dots that he has to go check.
Nice, nice. I like to color code everything. Also, makes it a lot easier when you're looking at a lot of animals. Things.
Post-it notes.
I like post-it notes, man. I get those things knocked off so often. I'm like a lot of different kinds of colored tape, different painter's tape.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, again, I like the colors. Let's see. Mass production kind of stuff.
Ooh.
I know, right?
Yeah, industry crunching questions.
Now, I know you guys have a set goal every year. Is it based on a percentage? You guys have do you like 70% of your females to go? Is that an unrealistic number if you're not going year round?
I think 70 is within the scope of what we actually have go to what we can. Because, you know, Mike and I were talking today, like, there is an expected number of reabsorbs. There's an expected number of slug outs. You know, with that many snakes, like, it's just going to happen. Like, I've seen females get bred 10 times for, you know, 6 months, and then have their follicles go to like 20, 25, and that's like right when the last moment that they'll reabsorb, right? I think. And then just pull them back, and like there's no good reason. You were 3,000 grams, you were amazing, you got plenty of bedroom fun, you know, all that, and you're still going to reabsorb. What the fuck?
I feel that's rare with ball pythons. I do think they are a little easier in a lot of species. Do you think that has anything to do with like not that extra meal at the end? Because sometimes I feel if I don't get that extra meal and I lose that.
I like them having that medium rat right at like 20 millimeters, because like to me that's the last time they'll eat, and that will, in my mind, push them forward and get the rest of the cycle going. But if she has enough weight prior to any of that, you know, I don't think it matters a whole lot. That last meal, it's kind of a snake by snake basis.
No, of course. Oh, what the crested geckos? You involved much in the crested gecko stuff over there? Or you guys have someone who runs that?
Dustin takes care of them. He does like consult with me from time to time, but I'm the one that they come to about like, hey, why is this doing this? Because I mean, I've worked with lots of geckos and lots of colubrids and lots of pythons and everything, boas, whatever. So like, I'm the curator of the building. So any like weird animal questions always come to me. But Dustin's doing all the care of the geckos. I was doing it a couple years ago, and I just couldn't do all the geckos and then all the stuff that I have to do with the ball pythons.
No, of course. What's some other species that you want to personally get into, or is your job fulfilling enough you don't want new things at home?
I like rare things. I like, you know, I want. I say I want. Do I need? Absolutely not. but I wouldn't mind like a pair of ring pythons. I wouldn't mind like some papuans, stuff like that. A little obscure. Not everybody's got them. They're really neat. I don't have too much of an interest in hot stuff. They're very pretty, and some of them are neat to be around, but I don't have much flair for actually keeping them here. Uh, I don't know. I see neat stuff all the time, and part of my heart does belong to geckos, like really neat day geckos, or some weird little obscure species that only gets like 3 or 4 inches long and is all like jeweled colored or something.
Yeah.
Neat stuff.
Well, ring pythons, yeah, that's one too. You don't see a lot in the United States. I used to love Don Patterson's pictures. He always had
Mhm.
nice apparent patterns with his. Um, how many of those do you think are even produced in the United States every year?
There's a ring python Facebook page, and there's a couple people set up to have clutches this year. Maybe even one's been laid, but there's going to be a few clutches from various people in the States this year. So they're around, just not everywhere.
We talk about them.
Timor pythons. Timor pythons are cool.
Timors are also really cool. I had Timors for like 5 minutes, literally almost 5 minutes. It was like I got one in, and a buddy came over and he's like, "Wow, that is a really cool animal," and I just pretty much gave it to him. But that was a long time ago. I did a lot of dumb shit like that back then. I wish I stuck it out. I'd have had
Yeah.
more.
Well, they supposedly need like 5 or 7 years to mature, and they take a long time. Supposedly, I've not done it myself, but there's people that have.
I don't mind the 5 to 7 years on stuff anymore. I used to be really go go go, and I do have certain species that are gonna get to size pretty fast. But like, I've gotten so used to waiting that long with my boa constrictors. Even some of my ball pythons, I don't breed until like 4 or 5 years old.
Oh yeah, some of those, even retics, minimum 3 years on a girl, and typically a little longer than that, maybe 4, possibly 5 years. So some of those species, just like you said with boas, they'll teach you some patience.
No, I'm glad you brought up retics too, because when I told William Philippek we were doing a podcast, he's like, "Well, I just hope you guys talk about retics." Um,
Okay, we've
so
successfully talked about retics. You're welcome, Phil.
no, we're gonna go for a while now. No, that was just an intro to this. That was a segue.
Okay. Okay.
Um, Retics. So that's gonna take us back to early days with Bob. You're working with a lot of retic stuff, right?
Yeah.
Um, when did you start working with Bob originally? What year ish?
Sheesh. Um, let's see. My kid was born in '06, so I want to say maybe 2003 or four,
Okay,
somewhere in that neighborhood.
nice. What was that like, man? What's it like being around a large collection of retics?
It's humbling. Uh, being being immersed in that many, 10, 12, 18 foot pythons is crazy. I thought for a long time that I wanted a bunch of snakes like that, and then working for Bob for 7 years showed me that I don't want that many snakes like that. And it's nothing on him or the snakes or anything. It's just like there's so many. It's a lot. It's a lot to walk into and try and take care of. You know, I had a manager when I started there. His name was Rance, and he was prepping me to be the manager because he wanted to leave and go be a fireman. So I was working with every single snake that we had, and from hatchlings to, you know, like I said, 12, 14, 18 foot retics, everything. Burmese. When I first started, Bob still had a couple Pembura, Ceylonese pythons.
Yeah.
Um, we had, no. Angullifer, Epicrates angullifer, Cuban boas. That one. We had Cuban boas, all the Antaresia. We had those. He had some ring pythons. He had Timors. Bunch of stuff. Got to work with a bunch of things. We got to babysit a shingleback skink for a couple months. That was badass.
That's pretty cool.
I don't remember the logistics of how that happened, but we were like the go-between for a few months. Somebody asked him to take care of it, and we did, and it was awesome.
So it sounds crazy, but I think we're getting close in the industry where you're going to actually start seeing shingles on tables.
That would be amazing. I'm sure they'll be stupid expensive, but amazing. I've only touched that one in my life, and it'd be cool to have another one
No,
like in hand.
the Goldfields, the paint job I'm talking about?
Is that like pinkish, orangish with that?
It's orange, black, and white.
Okay, I believe we're all thinking the same
I
thing.
think we're close, but yeah, I think I want to say there's 5 different ones you can get into. I should know more about this because I used to be so obsessed with skinks, but seeing I can never have shingles, I wanted to know nothing about them. I didn't care. But no, we're getting close. I know a breeder I talked to on the West Coast about 3 years ago. He had showed me pictures. He got twins in a couple litters. I don't know if he had triplets, but I thought he said triplets. At least twins, maybe like one slug out. And of course, anybody who makes shinglebacks is probably going to keep them all until they feel like they've had enough. And I know there's a guy in New Jersey, not going to drop names, but he's got the Goldfields, I want to say for sure. A few other things. He's very public about it. But no, like I said, the early talk on shinglebacks, and I bring this up a lot, was they bond for life in the wild. So the stuff we hear wouldn't breed because of that. I'm talking to guys with these animals now, and they are swapping males out from season to season and still having success with their females.
Huh.
So I think that was just our excuse on why we weren't successful early on. But,
yeah, I mean, they say that about Leachianus, that they kind of pair bond.
okay, I've heard that. Well, those are aggressive.
Yes.
Have you guys found with retics? Yeah, with retics that like certain pairs are just impossible. They're just too aggressive towards each other.
We had an instance. This was a female tiger titanium. This was her first year. She was like maybe 15 feet long, and I can't remember what we wanted to pair to it, but she was not letting any male breed her. And the window for Retics is very small. Like you got a couple 2 or 3 days to get. You really just need one lock. It's nice to have a couple, but you the window for fertilization is very small, I think. So we could not find a male that she would let breed. And I said, well, I know one that will breed her no matter what. Bob said, what? I said, Fire Tiger. Fire is platinum, same thing.
Yeah.
So this platinum tiger he was going to breed whatever you put him with, did not care. Suck part was he's 15 feet long. Second suck part, he's an asshole. So kind of finessing him across the room backwards to get him from the other side of the building where he was to where he needed to be with this tiger titanium. But he had her locked up in 30 minutes.
All right.
And we threw Motleys, we threw Golden Childs, we threw numerous males at this female, and she was just not having it. Except the Fire Tiger talked her into it.
Okay. I don't know if I've had that in skinks where I can't mix certain males. Like certain females need like a certain type of male with it. Some are just, I don't know, man. I got some males that won't even try to breed a female. You got to leave them alone for like an hour and hope you hear some thumps.
Yeah.
I don't know. They all have their own quirks. I had to make a note on every one of them. But with retics, do you guys ever find anything like introducing a male to a female cage, vice versa, is better in some cases?
Well, we always house the males in a little bit smaller cage. We might keep a male in a male retic doesn't need to be that big. They can get the job done at like 8 or 10 feet long. They don't have to be big. Yeah. So you might keep a male in like a for 5-foot cage, while the female gets a 6 or 8-foot cage. So it's much easier to grab the boy, run him over to the girl, and she's going to be, 5 or more times his weight. So female retics are picky. So she needs to be comfortable. She needs to be happy. She needs to be in her cage to do the thing. The male, we would get them used to being carted around everywhere. And yes, sometimes they would be in breed mode and be like a little bit snippy, and got to be a little bit more careful with them in that time of year. But for the most part, as long as you know what they're capable of, you can quickly get, an albino pied over to a tiger, double head albino pied, with some relative efficiency, and, nobody gets bit.
Fair. So online, when I see pictures of a retic with some scars or cuts on it, is that typically male aggression towards a female or female aggression towards a male?
I mean, I've seen both, but more times the male will get like a little bit crazed, and like once he's, because they're so hung up on breeding, they're not thinking straight. But I've seen males like slice themselves open, like to the meat and to the bone, like effortlessly. Their teeth are so stupid sharp, it's not even funny.
Yeah. I've never taken a retic bite, but I've honestly not handled a lot of retics in my day.
I've taken a lot.
Bless you, buddy. I freak out about baby ball python bites.
Yeah, I don't even notice those anymore.
No, I think I don't flinch as much as I used to. I think I had like a fake fear of spiders where I'd be a little dramatic when there was a spider in the room.
Mm-hmm.
I think in the early days of getting bit by snakes, I was a little overly dramatic, and everybody liked it so much it just like became the way I was every time I get bit by a snake. But it doesn't bother me. When I'm herping, it doesn't bother me as much.
Yeah,
I'll let snakes bite me while herping, but I think the ball pythons still get me some reason. I don't know why. I think I can be fast enough to get out of the way, but I'm really not fast enough.
Sometimes, like, if you're messing with a female and like she's on eggs or something, like I just think like sometimes the female wants a win. She wants to feel like she's defeated you in combat. I'll let them bite my hand or my arm or something. Just like, you need a win? You need a win real quick? Offer them the hand and then move on with my life.
Okay, that's fair.
Morale booster.
Yeah, I'll take my shirt off and throw it over the snake and remove it off the eggs by God. I'm not going to take a bite for the team. I think she's going to be okay either way for me personally.
You would love retrieving retic eggs.
I don't know if I would. I'm sure I'd enjoy the experience. No, I think we've all seen some videos online of people retrieving eggs and how crazy that shit can be.
Yeah, if you plan it out and everything works fine, it's okay. But if she's more prepared than you thought she was, it can get a little sketchy.
So, two things about that. One, did you guys incorporate lay boxes? Is that a necessary thing for that species?
Yes. The lay box is not for her, it's for us. I think, in my opinion. Bob was using lay boxes with Burmese like in the 80s, long ago. So, the lay box, getting her flipped off of the eggs, and then now you have hopefully all of the eggs contained in this box. Now you just worry about getting the box out of the cage, get it safely onto like a lidded trash can or a cart or the floor or whatever you can safely get them down to. Yeah. Get the cage closed and, set the eggs up properly with mom now contained back in her cage. The box helps quick movement of the entire clutch of eggs.
That's fair.
That doesn't want you to take her clutch of eggs.
Right. The slanted front of the neotiche, is actually kind of ideal for retics if they were going to just lay their eggs right there, because you have a little more of an angle where you're more over the clutch and not really going in where you got a low ceiling you got to work about. So right. I kind of like that, because I always wonder why he had the neotiches. Does that have anything to do with it, or did he just like them?
Bob helped design them.
Okay, so it was a
Yeah.
badge of honor having them.
So it was based on the design of the 3-foot. That was their first Neodesha, whatever,
Yeah.
cage. And one story he told me was in the mock-up of just dimensionally blowing up the cage. An adult human could nearly stand in the 6-foot cage. And he's like, no, we don't want it as tall. We want it 6 feet long, but only, like, I think they're like 28 inches high or 32 inches high. I used to know the measurements of the cage,
Yeah.
but Bob helped design that cage with Ted Pites there at Neodesha Plastics, many moons ago, many moons. So that's why you have that today, because of Bob.
Well, that's very interesting. I didn't know that. And honestly, I like that setup. I used to love it when you came across those cages at shows and people just gave them away, and
Yeah,
now
it's great.
people want $200, $300, $400 for them because
Yep.
they know there's people who want to buy those cages still.
And, the thing that we liked the most about them is, they don't require any extra lighting because you just have the room light. And, Retics don't need a ton of light anyway. The light was for us to, be able to work in the cage or in the building or wherever. But the slant front design allows for pretty much all the room light to be able to get into most of the cages.
Yeah, no, like I said, I think
A
it was a
bunch
really
of extra
good design.
stuff.
Yeah, I don't even know. I mean, I think that was a vacuum formed piece of plastic. I think is how they did that.
It's a vacuum molded. Yeah, the 6 foots are a 2-piece, and there's actually a seam with there's a plastic seam with staples inside the plastic that holds the top and bottom together. Then it's like plastic welded inside the cage to form that seal inside.
Interesting. You might have
I've
seen it.
taken a few apart.
Yeah, like I said, I've seen them in person. I'm used to the smaller ones, of course. I'll probably end up picking up more of those if I have an opportunity, just because again, it was really cool. I just remember seeing those cages everywhere when I first got in the hobby, and if you didn't
Oh
see
yeah.
those, you saw the visions everywhere.
Every time I saw those, to me, it meant hots. It meant cobras or rattlesnakes or, whatever. Because that was like the industry standard for those guys back in the day. And that was, the double screened tops on them. That's what it was made for, was for, venomous.
Interesting, because I thought it was just coincidental that anytime I saw any venomous guys at the shows over the years, they always use those. I didn't realize it was like meant for that part of the industry.
Well, I mean, they are held, and anybody listening, like, don't crucify me on the rules. I am not a hot keeper, but there's a lot of very exacting requirements that their caging has to be. It has to seal a certain way. It has to be lockable. It has to be double screened. There's a lot of parameters that have to be met legally to house those kinds of snakes. So the Neodesha was the first, and for a long time the only cage that met all of those hotkeeper requirements.
Yeah. Um, I always talk about lockout, tagout when I think about venomous guys and how you should be keeping them. If you worked in a factory, you know what lockout, tagout is. But
Sure.
yeah, but no, me and my buddy were thinking about writing and are like drawing up like almost parameters for the industry for certain things with the idea of procedures from factories. And it was an idea we had like 10 years ago. And lockout, tagout was a big part of what we were going to do with like the venomous community. But like everything I've been ambitious about, I never followed through with it. Like just other shit to do.
There's too much other shit to do, man.
But
Like all day today I thought it was Thursday, and then you messaged me like, oh hey, like, do you want to talk about this one thing later? I was like, fuck, it's Friday.
I'll be
Whole day
honest, I do
gone.
it too. And it was a good day. I got a lot accomplished, but like I really want to take Sunday off. And now I got more things to do tomorrow that's like unreptile related with like cars that need to be repaired. I don't know if I could take Sunday off anymore. But I wish it was Thursday. It'd be a lot better for me. I'd have more time. Yeah, I'm just like babbling. I wouldn't respond to that either, bud. Well,
If it was Thursday, I'd be fishing.
yeah, which by the way, it's kind of perfect that when I finally get my first paddle fish, it's just a couple days before having you on a podcast.
Yep.
Like, kind of perfect.
I'm a little sad that it wasn't with me, but I'm also very happy that you got one.
I'm very sad it wasn't with you too. I will say, and I don't know, the ones here are fucking beautiful, man. Those things were
Oh,
like
they're
blue.
stunning.
Yeah, are they that? Is it just the big ones that look ugly and brown, or do you
I
guys?
how big was yours? Like 30, 40?
It had to be over 40 or around 40.
Okay, that was my guess, just eyeballing it, about 40ish.
Yeah.
But I think that's pretty standard. You
Okay.
know, bluish, grayish.
Yeah.
I haven't seen I've seen a couple pictures of like melanistic ones that are very rare, very rare. But yeah, I think the gray blue is just pretty standard, and they might look like a. I think they get chunky and they don't know what to do with themselves when they're like over 100 pounds. You know?
Yeah. No. Very unique species, by the way, too. Like, so I didn't realize their gills, how long they were, and the way they just kind of flow in
Big,
the water.
yeah.
Yeah, no, the gills were kind of different. Like I said, the color was unexpected. I thought it'd be more of a brownish color. Great fight, a lot of fun. I ended up sight fishing them at night.
Uh-huh.
We were just fishing for stripers, and we were running into them just with our bass tackle. Once the sun went down at the dam, you started seeing them come a little closer to the shoreline.
Uh-huh.
And sighted two about 30 minutes apart, and got them both right in the edge of the mouth and the cheek, like perfectly.
Nice.
I accidentally ran into one bass fishing. I battled that thing for like 45 minutes.
I
And
bet.
inevitably got around a boulder and I broke off.
Ugh.
I couldn't fight it any harder because, again, I was using a bass rod.
Right. Yeah, you can only do so much.
Yeah. So, but, for the experience doing that, something that, like, I just kind of wanted one. I don't know. I'll probably maybe do it one more time. Have you ate one yet?
Yeah, I like it. I think it's like a firmer catfish. Really, is the flavor profile to me.
Chicken consistency is what I've been seeing a lot of videos.
Yeah.
I was trying to find a recipe that I might like. It seems like most people are just cutting them kind of thinner and like breading them and deep frying them, and that's the way to go.
Yeah, I just made like paddlefish fingers basically and deep fried them, and that was the best result. I sauteed them a few times, but the deep fried pieces was ultimately the best route.
Yeah, I think I'll keep one next time. Like I said, I'm not a big fish guy, but if I'm going to do that, I should probably keep at least one.
Right. Yeah, we're allowed to keep 2 a year here. So I've kind of been thinking about going sometime in the near, like, I need to go. If I'm going to go, I need to go like within the month,
Yeah.
and because there's people getting them at the good spots now, like where you and I went to Caw. There's people getting 20 to 40 pounders right now.
The population by this dam I was at must be crazy because, like I said, it was like every cast I was bumping into one, no matter where I threw it.
Well, was there water coming out of the dam?
Well, it was actually kind of pushing at the dam, but they were turning it on, off and on.
Uh-huh.
And we were able to catfish while doing that because the current wasn't that bad.
Yeah.
Usually you're just getting tangled up the whole time.
Well, when they are letting water out, that stirs up all the plankton and stuff, and that will push the paddles up like right to the dam.
Okay. We see a lot of them jumping, a lot of them surfacing. Like I said, tons of them. And then I ran into, it's not the Asian jumping carp. Is it the big head carp?
There's a silver and then the big head. They look similar until you have them out, and then like the head is dramatically larger on the big head.
Okay. They have more of that like pixelation, like a little bit of silver showing through, but more like a bluish greenish. I don't know, man.
Yeah, that might be the big head. They can be like mottled in color a little bit, kind of
Yeah.
calico looking sometimes.
Calico is the way I'd want to put that. Like the buttermilks down in Texas, the racers.
Yeah, that's probably the big head then.
So I did catch a couple of those on accident, and we used that for bait. I heard it was great catfish bait. Catfish didn't.
Yeah, there's a YouTuber I watch that he uses a ton of silver carp or even big head, and he has a pretty good bit of success on it. But they're also in the water that he's fishing, so
Yeah.
I mean, you should have been able to there since they were there, but it's whatever.
I think it was an off day. We killed it with cats yesterday, or 2 days ago. I think we had 5 cat hookups. yesterday we had no cat hookups, and our lines were in the water at least 3 hours longer than the day beforehand. So someday they're on, that someday they're off. But what was the biggest retic clutch you guys got over at Bob's?
I want to say it was like 78 or something like that. So we had to set up 3 boxes of vermiculite for the clutch. It was a lot. I think it was in the 70s.
What is average clutch for a female?
I think about 35 to 40
35, 40.
in my experience for like a 15, 16 foot animal. That's your average adult, without being a huge animal.
Talked about this before, but do you remember the Jay Brewer video where he had like twins and triplets all in the same clutch, like multiple eggs? It might have been like,
I vaguely recall that, but I mean that'd be pretty crazy. We had twins a few times, but twins are not as cool as people think they are. In Retics it's easier because they're bigger, but like twin ball pythons, all I see is a pain in the ass. You got to work with those damn things 6 months longer just to get them to normal selling size.
yeah. I will say the twins I get have always been a little more ferocious. Like they actually tend to be good feeders, but yeah, you're getting a lot of small meals to make them look like they just hatched.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I don't like. It's cute, it's adorable. Seeing 2 noses poke out of there, yeah, it's great. But the work on the other end.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. So with the retics, I mean, did you guys do a lot of rabbit feeding? Did you guys get some pig supplies in? What did you guys find work best?
We fed a lot of everything. We had a guy that would deliver rabbits every probably a week or two. We got chickens, guinea pigs, rats, like whatever.
Yeah.
Chicken day was always fun because he got in cahoots with a local farm that's in Oklahoma, not in the city, but just that's outside of the city. And they cycle out their laying chickens like every 4 months.
Yeah.
That people don't know, but like those things have a pretty high turnover rate. They're only good layers for a pretty short amount of time, and then he's raising up a new batch of chickens to be the new layers. So that guy would bring us like 400 chilled, pre-killed chilled chickens, and then like another 200 live chickens. And so we'd spend a couple hours running around with fistfuls of chickens, live chickens, feeding all these retics.
Pretty
Chicken
good.
was fun.
Yeah, we at our local feed stores like Orscheln's, things like that. When the chicks get too big, they have trouble selling them. So if you go in there, sometimes they're like just quarter a piece, take them all. I picked them up in the past. Some ball pythons would actually take them. Most didn't really give a shit.
Yeah.
I thought the boas would love them. A lot of the boas didn't want anything to do with them. The Woma pythons were good for it. They'll take about everything. So
Anything. Yeah.
yeah, bloods are the same way. I don't even know if I got any of the bloods take any of the chickens, to be honest with you.
I think retics get bored.
Yeah.
Or like not so much with babies, but I think bigger ones can get bored with like a rabbit every 10 days or a couple of guinea pigs or whatever. And something about a chicken, like just lights a fire under their ass and they will just wreck a chicken when they were just completely unenthusiastic about something else.
Interesting. It's not a bad thing. I like
An
changing up.
exciting smell to them.
Okay. Yeah, with boas, I mean, I remember seeing pictures on Facebook of like raw chicken legs in a boa's mouth, and like it just seemed a little unnatural. But I understand changing the back up a little bit.
Yeah.
You
But
know,
how nice is it to go to the grocery store and just get a pack of chicken thighs and know that you can feed your boa?
no, yeah, I mean, if they were willing, I mean, they have. I got a place called Price Cutters out here in the woods where I live, and they do like the big thing of chicken legs that's only like $12.99, and when it's like 3 days from expiring, it's down to like $5.99.
Yeah.
I had a bunch of snakes that were really neat that I could go get a bunch of 2 days till expiring packs, and that actually saved me a lot of money. I think it's unlikely. I couldn't get them to take them years ago when I tried it. I don't think I'm going to want to try again.
Yeah, I would definitely want to have more takers and some call it a win, call it some success to repeat the process.
Yeah. Here's a question for you, and this is maybe a little bit of an opinion. So with boas over the years, with babies, I've always been really stern about mice or African soft furs. I've always argued do not go rat pups. I thought it's too fatty. I thought there's too much milk content. I didn't think it was like a good meal for a boa.
Hmm.
The reason I bring this up is my mouse colony during the move shut down, so I started doing rat pinks and rat pups with my newborn boas I've been getting. First off, they're getting really big really fast. They actually look really good. And usually I look at their stool to see if there's something about their stool I'm uncomfortable about.
Hmm.
The stools actually look pretty good. Um, I guess I'm more just telling you about my experience, but like, have you ever like been like stern on a certain feeding program and then suddenly you go against your nature and you're like, wow, this might be better?
I have not worried about it with anything but ball pythons. Baby green trees, carpets, rough scales, they're all so small, you pretty much have to start with a rat, not a rat, excuse me, a mouse pink or maybe a small fuzzy, depending on the snake. So you really don't have a lot of options there unless you go ASF, which, I guess you can if you have those. But I think a first meal for a boa, a rat, a big pinky, a fuzzy is fine. If you have the mice, like I think mice are a little more interesting because they are jerky in their movements and they're moving around erratically and it looks interesting. Whereas the pup or the fuzzy is just kind of crawling around a little bit and it looks more boring. And I think that's the thing with ball pythons is that the way that it moves is more interesting than what it is. Although I can see them take an interest in the smell of a mouse first, and I can trick them into taking the fuzzy if I wave a mouse in front of them, but then I really put the fuzzy in front of them while they're excited about the mouse.
Okay.
So it's kind of it depends. Like I want the ball pythons to eat a fuzzy, so that we can get a few meals in them and establish whether we're going to keep that animal or we're going to sell that animal or put it on a photo list or whatever, uh, as safely for the snake, but as quickly for us as we can.
No, if you get a baby ball python or rat pup or rat pink, I mean that thing's going to shoot up in size fast. Probably going to be a pretty good feeder for you.
Yeah.
Mice ones do pretty good. I think, like you said, it's that erratic movement. And the same thing with the boas. Not all my newborn boas are willing to take a rat pink. But if I throw a hopper mouse on there the next day, it's going to probably take it. Yes. So I agree with the whole movement part of it. I think more, I was overthinking the contents inside my meal too much.
Uh-huh.
Maybe it wasn't as bad on the digestive system. I just thought I would get like runnier poops or softer poops, maybe grayer. Like I said, I just always thought that extra bone development was important. I don't know now. Like, we'll see how the rest of the year goes.
Right.
But ooh, what we used to talk about your traveling overseas.
Okay.
Um, what's the craziest? You guys ever see a sea turtle in a 10-gallon aquarium over there?
No, never a sea turtle.
Okay.
I saw a few Fijian banded iguanas. I've talked about those in some posts. Uh, Seen pretty rare geckos that we don't have over here. Some of the Australian stuff is a little more common. And, I'm going to get the stupid thing where somebody says pics or it didn't happen. But I have held a blackhead Boland's hybrid in my hands at Houghton, Netherlands.
Interesting.
I had a pair of them, and they were amazing. And the cell service back then, like I didn't have like free international when it was like crazy expensive. So I have no photos. I have no evidence. I have sheerly my word that this animal existed, a Boland's blackhead hybrid. And the guy had two of them. He wanted like 10,000 euros for the pair.
So this might make the picture surface up. Maybe I don't know how broad this audience is, but I'd love to see that. What's
Pretty
the body
wild.
you like on that? Is it more like the blackhead or more like the Boelens?
You could see both. Like it, in my mind, like I'm operating off of like this is like Windows 98, trying to dredge up something here, but you know, I could tell features from both species very easily. Like, here's the knobby, more, formerly Morelia, now Somalia, whatever head. Uh, aren't they Somalia now? I don't know. Anyway, whatever. Fucking Bolin's python. So, like, you can see Bolin's features, and you could see blackhead, Aspidites features really easily in the animal. But again, like, it basically didn't happen because I have no proof of it whatsoever. And like, all I have is Bob was standing 3 feet away from me, and we were looking at him like, "Oh my god, these are so cool," and that's it.
The hybrid thing, like I remember Nerd's website back in the day. There was the wall.
Uh-huh.
Maybe the angry ball was on there already.
Yeah, they had dicar plots.
Yes. Not that people aren't doing that anymore. I don't know if there's just a lot of other things, and it's not like the most. A lot of people don't like it, and I understand.
I think they're neat, and the argument a lot of people make that I don't understand is like, oh well, what if it gets into the genetics of the existing lineages? And it's like, how are you going to accidentally breed a Carpondro to like your sickness line Bill Siegel chondro? Like, you're not going to do that. You're just not going to do that.
No, 100%. It's one of those things, and a lot of that stuff's sterile.
Well, there was one F2 Borneo bat eater way back in the day on the Bob Clark forums. There was a guy, I do not remember his name, and there were pictures. I don't have any, but he had a pair of bat eaters. He raised up his pair of bat eaters. They made a clutch, and the eggs whittled themselves down to literally one egg, and one egg hatched, and he made, I think at the time, and probably still, the only F2 bat eater that there ever was.
Huh. The blood ball was that the Super Ball we call that?
Angry balls.
Angry
Yeah.
Ball's the Angolan.
Okay, yeah, you're right.
So the blood.
Super Ball, yeah, Super Ball. You're right.
I could be wrong. I could be wrong on that. So we bred the Super Bowl female this year to the Angry Ball. Just get a little weird, and
Yeah, that's weird.
3 giant slugs and 1 giant infertile egg. No veins, no nothing. Put in the incubator just to do it. Nothing happened.
Yeah.
I think the year before that we might have got a slug out from her. I think we even backed her up with like a calico spot nose banana this year.
Uh-huh.
I just didn't take. I don't know if we'll do it again. I think I've tried this girl like 3 times. She was a female that Ben just happened to have in his collection.
Yeah.
I don't know why. Just happened to have this one. He must thought it was cool.
He
And
bought it because he thought it was cool, I'm sure.
thought it was cool, exactly. And yeah, just I never really thought about breeding her. Bree was really into breeding her, so we tried a couple times. Just haven't got it done yet, man. And I don't know if it ever will.
I tried bat eaters one time. I was working for Bob, so I had access to like a ton of different snake skin. So I got like a big, like, gallon Ziploc bag full of numerous different female Retics skin. And I had my 12-foot albino Burmese at home. And so I lined the cage with the skin of all the female Retics. And I took the male, it was probably my tiger head albino or something, maybe a super tiger. I don't know. I don't remember which male it was. But put him with her, and holy crap, I got a lock. All right. And they locked another time, like some days later. And I could feel follicles, and she was building. Okay, great. Like, I might actually get bat eaters. And then one day I come home from work, and she's coiled up. But she was coiled really low. I was like, fuck me. Like the flat coil. We don't want the flat coil. We want the big coil.
Yeah.
And there was like, 25 or 30 slugs. It's like, fucking shit. And it's so demoralizing. Like, how could I do that again? You know, how could I put her through that again? So like, you just do it one time and you're like, okay, I'll never do that again. I'm sorry that I made you waste all that energy. Like every egg is like a little pile of energy that she wastes to, you know, do nothing.
No, and that is very true. There's that gentleman, I think he's overseas, hypo bat eaters, where they get that really beautiful like forest green. You know what I'm talking about?
No, but that sounds cool. I like it.
Man, well, now I'm gonna have to dig up a picture, but we're gonna have to talk about something else while I find this thing. 'Cause it is a really cool animal. But yeah, no, back to the hybrids. You know, even like the White Plains show back in the day. I think in like 2003, I saw the Chihuahua crested gecko cross, and it was just
Mm-hmm.
like narrow head, but it had all that bright red crested gecko color.
Right.
And same show, there was an Amazon Emerald cross, which they were vibrant red, really beautiful. I don't know if I ever saw those in person after that. And other than that, hybrids over the years, just a lot of cool colubrid stuff, man. Like some of
Yeah.
that, it's like when you start doing like the milk snake, king snake kind of weird crosses, right? You start getting some that look like the one, and some look like the other, and some look like a merge of the two.
Uh-huh.
I think Nerd's still doing some stuff like that. I feel like he had a clutch a few years ago.
I'm trying a Nelson corn cross at work just for fun because
Yeah.
we literally have one corn snake. It is one female, a male tessera. So I'm putting a T plus Nelson's to it to see if something happens.
All right. If something happens, I'm going to want to see it.
Oh yeah, of course. You're in my top 5.
I appreciate that. I could have maybe done something this year because, we do have a nice group of colubrids here. As much as I talk about it, I haven't really been tempted to do it yet, but maybe I should do one. Is it wrong to do one?
Nah, like the worst that can happen is what's happening right now, which is nothing.
There
Now,
used to be,
hopefully your king snake doesn't yoke out your corn snake or something like that. You know, God forbid.
God,
So I guess that's slightly worse than nothing is having one of them, you know, attempt to consume the other one. But for the most part, the worst that can happen is nothing except for that.
there's been Honduran corn snakes, right?
I don't know, but I mean, they've all been around long enough. I'm sure somebody's tried it. I've
Yeah.
seen, you know, obviously, you know, we saw the jungle corns way back in the day when they invented those. Those are cool.
No, I remember that. I think I remember when the scaleless corn snake first hit the market. There was a lot of rumors that it was just a rat snake scaleless bred into corns, and then corn after corn after corn to make it look like a corn snake.
Well, it came out in the wash later that it was from emery eye. There was a scaleless emery that got incorporated into Gutata, and that's where it came from. Now, was there ever a pure scaleless Gutata? I don't know, but there is emery lineage in some of that original scaleless corn snake stuff.
Interesting, very interesting. I never heard that before. I'm gonna have to call
Yeah.
Junior after this. He's gonna love that.
The pet shop that I worked at here, before I worked for him, my cousin and I were visiting one day and like getting feeders or something, and the owner showed us a scaleless black rat snake that some kid had found on a golf course that morning. Like, shit you not, saw this with my own eyes. And again, no photos, because actually, I have an excuse now, because camera phones hadn't been invented yet.
Yeah.
But saw it, like, in a fucking peanut butter jar at this pet store that, like, some kid had just caught on a golf course that morning. So that's somewhere, or it was, you know, this is, 30 years ago.
A lot of that stuff gets lost. I saw pictures or Polaroids of a albino Western Massasauga rattlesnake that I want to say might have been from Kansas. He showed me Polaroids at a show, really unique looking animal. I don't think it ever bred for him, and I'm sure it died over time. I've seen, that's the cool thing about Facebook is the snake ID pages.
Yeah.
Some of these random people that say, hey, ID this snake are posting mutations of snakes they're finding in the wild.
It's really cool. I'm a member of, I want to say like 4 to 6 of those groups. I I can get carried away in them, so I don't do too many. But like there was a mandarin rat snake in Texas. Uh, then somebody posted it, and I managed to be one of the first few people commenting on it that knew what it was. I was like, this is not supposed to be there. This is somebody's expensive escaped pet, and it was full on a mandarin rat snake, like no possible any other thing.
Was that? I think I remember that actually. Was that a while ago or a few years ago?
It's been a few years. It's been a few years.
I think I remember that post actually. No, I love all that stuff, man. And I try to use iNaturalist a little bit now for like my herping. Kind of see where there's like a focused area. We're seeing people see a lot of stuff. You can type in hog nose; it'll show you where somebody's seeing hog nose. So it does come in handy. It's never a guarantee. I'll be honest. Most time we don't find anything in these spots.
Right.
But when we have nothing and nowhere to go, we're going to give it a shot. When does road cruising typically pick up for you in Oklahoma? Like, when do I got to get down there again?
I think. I mean, it's been pretty warm this week, so probably any time in the next month it would start to kick off to where, as long as we still have, if we have warm days and cool nights, they'll want to be out on the road catching a little bit of that last heat that's trapped in the road.
Yeah.
But as it gets to be hotter, then it's just freaking hot all the time.
Yeah, I think that was like one of my favorite things about the Oklahoma spots we go to is we always waited till later in the evening to go. And then the one time I start early with Mike, we find horny toads.
Yeah.
I went to that spot 5 or 6 or 7 times over like 7 years, never saw one. Got out 2 hours early. They were fucking everywhere.
I had never found horn lizards until we went out really far west to Hollis, Oklahoma. We went for a weekend, me and about 10 other people. My friend Jamie, Joseph, Noah Fields was actually with us on that one, Aaron Short, and some other guys, chasing all kinds of stuff. And we stopped on the side of the road. One of those guys had been spotting horn lizards sitting on the side of the road, and they found like half a dozen just like chilling on the line, on the white line of the road. Yeah. So we pulled off and grabbed a few up and took pictures and stuff, and let them on their way. It was neat to finally see some basically in the wild, like on the road, but it's wild.
Yeah, me and Mike had this like really dumb moment when we saw our first one, because like they kind of like crawl across the road a little bit.
Yeah.
Like literally, I was all like, "Was that a toad?" And he was like, "Man, I think that was a lizard." And like we jumped like in the deep grass and digging around. It made it to the very edge of the road and just stopped. So luckily Mike was still kind of checking out that area, but no, it was just it's always cool to see something new. And that's kind of like one of those ones you saw in the books growing up, like as a reptile like lover. Yeah. And it took me almost 40 years to finally see my first one in the wild.
Same. Like this trip to Hollis was maybe 10 years ago at the most.
Yeah.
And it was maybe less than that, but it's been a few years. But it took going 3 hours, 3.5 hours out of town to do it. I know there's got to be some closer, but actually that was like a land management area, so they try and keep it natural in that part of the world. So, yeah.
So a goal that I made for myself a long time ago is I really want to see a timber in as many states as possible. And when we were leaving Oklahoma last time, we were somewhere between Oklahoma and Tulsa, and we found one just crossing a road. And I remember when we were pulling up on it, it was so big and it was from afar. I immediately just thought it had to be a bull snake. And then we get there and it's just like one of the most beautiful timbers I've seen in my life.
We have really pretty timbers here.
Yeah, I'm very fortunate to see that one. And it was in a weird area too, because it was just so flat. And like, yeah, you could see like a little bit of a mountain like forever away, but it was just like flat cornfields and like one little house in the middle of nowhere.
And one rattlesnake.
One rattlesnake just happened to be crossing the road for us. And you know what the best thing is too is like literally me and Mike looked at a map and we just figured let's waste like 2 or 3 hours on this drive home. We'll make the 6-hour drive a 9-hour drive, more or less.
Let's
And
torture ourselves.
yeah, so we find a grid of roads, or just a section of roads that just kind of made sense to us. And I think we found a Prairie King, a neonate, and then we found that timber. And man,
Yep.
that was rewarding. But were you gonna say something, or should I keep on?
Go ahead. Like, I mean, I've found one timber with a group here in Edmond, Oklahoma. Basically, it's about 40 minutes from my house, so not super far. But popular lake over there has a lot of like natural wooded terrain and stuff around it that doesn't get. They haven't like cleared it off for the lake or anything. It's all pretty natural, and so there can be timbers and pygmies out there.
No, I love that. And, I only have like 2 spots in the United States I've seen Massasaugas, one being the one that we did together in Oklahoma.
Mm-hmm.
And then I found another one in Kansas, or somewhere in the center of the state in Kansas. But, yeah, I'm sorry.
We found a few Massasaugas out in Hollis that trip. I think we've like 3 or 4.
Yeah, no, we found like 3 or 4. And the last couple times I've gone, I've seen one, but honestly, one's enough. It's not like we're keeping these things. It's not like
Right.
every picture is going to look different. It's more like I like to see as many things as possible. Found a baby rough green there last time, which I was surprised to see.
Nice.
Still would love to see a hognose, man. And I don't know if I'm going to see it in Oklahoma or Missouri first.
I have not found a wild hognose. I used to work for the cable company here, and one of my installers, I was the night crew for dispatch. One of my installers brought me a baby western hognose that he'd caught, and he was going to bring it home to let his kids play with. And I said, well, okay, but they are mildly venomous. He's like, oh shit, Jeff, you take this thing and let it. It was like, I said, it's not going to hurt you. It's just be careful, like understand what it is. He's like, nope, not messing with it. You take it. So that's my one experience with one of my guys finding a hognose snake, is then I drove it out of town and relocated it to a proper area and let it go, since they're native here and we're not allowed to keep them legally.
Yeah. No, small area, Missouri. Only place you can find it was like 200 acres at this point. I've been there 5 times. I've hiked the shit out of it. I've never found one. A shed one time, I believe.
My friends here that have found them say that the soil is the key. They like a certain like sandy, loamy soil to live around. And once you change soil density, like they don't want to be on the other soil.
No, I'm going to take a picture because I'm going to probably go back again this spring because I just got to see one eventually. But it's like 3.5 hours from my home, so it's a full commitment to maybe find a hognose.
Right.
When you roll up to this spot, like I said, it's 200 acres. As soon as you get there, like you said, loose, sandy soil, prairie kind of look. Like as soon as you see it, you're like, wow, of course there's going to be a hognose here. Mud snake. I got to see a mud snake this year, man.
Yeah, it'd be nice. And we have them in Oklahoma, and there's a place where people have found them at Red Slough. But it's a little bit of a hike for me. I wouldn't necessarily go by myself, but that'd be a place to see alligators, mud snakes, amphiumas, some of the far southeastern stuff that you don't always get to see here.
You guys, any good bowfin fishing down there?
I don't know. I've never caught a bowfin, so I don't. I think we have them in Oklahoma. I think they're further east, so could be over that way.
Okay. So
we don't have them central. I know that.
Interesting. Mud snakes. My mud snake spot is also a bowfin spot here.
Nice.
The bowfin their population is so big there that my friend Eric with a beard I hang out with sometimes to go herping with? Eric Hogue?
No, but I believe you.
All right. Well, he had our little dip net, and he actually went in and just like scooped one up like it was nothing. There's so many of these things.
Awesome.
And there's actually been snakehead sightings there now.
Oh.
Yeah. Mike goes fishing in Maryland at some of those spots, and the population, he says, you can go out and actually look for them and find them pretty regularly in Maryland.
Yeah, they're in the Potomac up there, or the Potomac system.
I think, yeah, exactly. I don't know if a bowfin and a snakehead can hybridize or not. Because I was kind of wondering that when they showed up in an area where there's a lot of bowfin, if maybe that was a possibility they could hybridize from there and make something new and weird.
I don't know, but I do know that the snakehead they spawn when they're happy and there's lots of food. They spawn numerous times, just over and over and over again. That's why they're choking out a lot of other stuff in the places that they're already at.
Interesting. I wouldn't mind going to Florida and targeting like clown knives, peacocks, and snakeheads all in the same weekend.
That would be amazing. I watch a lot of that content on YouTube, and that just looks insane. To just those three species you mentioned just are nuts
Yeah.
to go after.
And I know there's some other stuff down there, but those would be probably my three that I would really love to get. That's like a Miami thing, right?
Maybe like in Dade Broward area,
Okay.
but I think like central Florida on probably. Well, it's the canal system that they have set up, and like once they're in the canals, they can basically get everywhere.
Yeah. Well, jumping carpet the same way. About how those are going everywhere, and they're setting up dams in certain areas in hopes of stopping them.
Yeah.
I've also heard that they were introducing alligator gar to sections of the Mississippi River in hopes that they would eat the jumping carp. That's me telling you. I think it's true.
I would have thought they already lived there.
Well, maybe introducing more to try to get
Okay.
the populations bigger. Because I know there's probably certain spots, but I don't know if the entire Mississippi River has alligator gar. Because I don't have those in I don't have them in Missouri.
Huh. Because we have alligator gar here in the eastern part of the state, just central, but a little more east than where I'm at, and into the Red River and Texoma. I think the Red River winds up into the Mississippi, if I'm not mistaken. I don't have the map in front of me, but
Interesting.
that's not to say that all the gar have to go to the Mississippi.
No, and like you said, I'm sure there's some, but I don't know if they need to be a little further south. I don't know if that's a species that does well up north where it's cooler.
I think they like to be warmer.
Yeah.
So I do know that when I was a kid, my dad and I saw uh, alligator gar in the Atchafalaya Basin in Louisiana. So they're all over down there too. They prefer to be warmer, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. I think that spot that the bowfin are at, I thought I had heard they introduced alligator gar there because there's a lot of long nose and I think short nose gar there, like tons. It's perfect for them. Chain pickerel in there too. It's a neat little spot to fish. But yeah, I heard they introduced them, and there was one time I was herping there, and I was going over a bridge, and I claimed I saw one that seemed like it was an alligator gar. I could have been wrong. I didn't even know about them being introduced, but I was told afterwards they were. I'm sure I just misid'd it. When I saw that paddlefish for the first time the other day, before I realized there was paddlefish there, I thought I saw a sturgeon because I only saw the lower half.
Right.
And I saw the pointy tail, and I just made an assumption. I guarantee it was a paddlefish the first night and not actually a sturgeon.
Well, I mean, their tail is about the same shape, if I'm, recalling my sturgeon facts accurately.
You're right. Very similar tail, and I think I just wanted it to be a sturgeon. Should have known it was paddlefish. Let's see. Because we're probably going to wrap this up in like 10. I feel like we talked a lot of fishing, not enough snakes. I almost feel bad sometimes.
We can talk about snakes. We can talk about fish. We can
Let's
talk
wrap.
about making homemade lures. Here's the wooden master for a soft plastic I'm going to make.
Let's tie.
I couldn't find the bait that I wanted, so I made one, and I'm gonna cast those.
So we became very obsessed with those mega basses, the jerk baits.
Yeah.
And they're like $20 a pop. 25 some. So we found a few websites that have the blanks, and it's like $1.38 for a blank, and you got to buy the swivels, you got to buy the treble hooks.
Mm-hmm.
I'm probably gonna get it's probably a lot, but I'm probably gonna buy like 50 of them just because I love painting shit. Like I want to set up like a whole workshop and just start working on it.
See, I'm learning to make some of that stuff too. So here's the master jig head for the thing I just showed you. But I don't like the collar and the spines on a lot of the jig heads. I think it changes the shape too much. I don't like that. So I'm making the jig heads how I want them to be.
Nice. I've always wanted to do more of that. And the Megabass thing, I just want to save money. I would love to do some latex molds, but like, I don't use a lot of soft plastics anymore.
Yeah. I use a lot of soft plastics, way more than I used to.
And those are for the wipers, right?
Yeah, hybrids, white bass, whatever. I've caught numerous catfish on soft plastics, drum, bass, white bass, wipers, whatever, everything. And I can make them myself now for pennies on the dollar.
Which is the beautiful thing. I don't. Did I ever tell you about slinky weights?
I think that I feel like we've talked about slinky weights before.
So I'll tell you again because the spot that I was fishing the other day, I kind of want to use them there because you get caught up so often. I think it'll actually work for bottom bouncing, but nylon rope, like a 5/6 inch section, cut it off, pull the innards out, torch the end or lighter it, squeeze it with some pliers, fill a bunch of BBs, close the other end out, put a hole in it. I hook it up to braid on a 3-way, and I did that for bottom bouncing in the Niagara River for trout.
Yeah, catfish guys do that for just bottom bouncing for blues and stuff.
I tell you, I didn't know if that was like a Great Lakes kind of thing or if word got out about how good that worked.
They have pirated the technology from the Great Lakes, but they're using it now.
Okay. Center pinning. We talk about center pinning too. I kind of want to do center pinning at the dam for catfish, but I'm gonna have to bulk up my test line on there. I think I've got like a 14 or 16 pound test on there. I think I'm gonna break off pretty fast in the fast water if I try center pinning them.
Yeah, I don't use anything under like 30, and those are my light for catfishing. It's 30 to like 80.
I think I've got like 50-pound braid on the one, but I also wanted to use for shark fishing in Florida, so I figured I'd go a little bit heavier. And I might have 80 braided on the other, which means I'll never lose anything.
Right.
Other than the rock. I was going to say, man, rock does not like the braid.
The Achilles heel of braided line is a moderately sharp rock.
Yeah, which is wild. But, well, with this, bud, we're close enough to 2 hours.
Sure.
I can keep going. Well, it's not that. I took an allergy pill before this like an idiot, and it's making me drowsy. I feel like I'm slurring my words. How are my words to you?
Sleep. Go to sleep.
No, fuck it. I'll keep going with you. Let's keep going.
Okay, it's whatever.
I want to go with your topic, though. I don't know what that topic is yet. I know it's not fishing, though. I love talking fishing.
We're gonna bore a portion of the audience. There's a lot of snake/fishermen, but we can go snakes. We can go geckos, lizards, monitors. What are you most excited about this year? What's like an exciting pairing or a combo that is on the cusp of coming to fruition?
Oh God, what if it's all awful? No.
Favorite one right now, 5 seconds.
No. There's always a lot of things going on. I remember my failures over my succeeding, and I recently was talking about how with the children's pythons this year.
Uh-huh.
You know, like when you hold up a ball python, you see the bump, 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 and you're like, yeah, she's gravid.
Yeah.
Done. Man, those children's pythons fooled me. Like, I think those particles were just so big, I thought they were eggs.
Yeah.
I marked one of the 3 as gravid. There's still 2 were breeding. It wasn't gravid. And the whole time, like, I'm like, why isn't it hugging the heat? Why is it still on the cool side? Like, all that normal body language stuff I should know about. And it's such a silly thing because they were just normal children's.
Yeah.
I just wanted to see those little babies this year.
Oh, they're adorable.
Yeah. So
we did children's unspotteds and Stimsons at Bob's, and they are just the cutest little things.
No, so that was a big miss. Boa wise, I've had like 5 good litters on the ground, so a good start for the boas. But I've also had like 4 bad litters on the grounds for boas this year. 3.
Isn't that about par though for boas? Is like 50-50?
Well,
out.
It might be. You know what I'm finding, and some of my older females, and they're not even like significantly older, but some that have had like 2 or 3 breeding seasons were the ones I had slug outs with this year, the ones I had deformed babies.
Yeah.
All my 5 to 7-year-old virgin females I went this year, perfect. And these females are like 8 pounds going into this, I want to say 7, 8 pounds. And I'm getting litters of about 18 to 22. I just bred a female that must have been 45 pounds, and she gave me 3 dead babies.
Yeah.
2 years ago, I bred her, and she gave me 3 slugs, and I thought it was a fluke. I kept ultrasound to make sure there was nothing left in her. For whatever reason, this female, that is, again, the biggest bone in my collection, will not develop more than 3 follicles in a season.
Wow.
Yeah, she's got some Surrey blood in her. I think it was some of that Roswell ladder tail stuff.
Uh-huh.
But no, I can't get her. She's a pet now. And it's not to be rude, but that's a lot of, like you said, a lot of energy that goes into something. And, you know, it's a cool big snake, and I like having it around, but I don't think I'll breed her again after this season.
Right. Yeah. That happens, you know. Maybe she has an oviduct that's bad, and then the one that is functional is short or malformed or something. You know, you can kind of tell, you know, if a ball python gives you 8 eggs and there's 4 slugs and 4 eggs, like something happened with that whole other oviduct, and all of those slugs were probably in the one oviduct together, and like that duct didn't get fertilized or whatever for some reason.
Yeah, I hate to blame the males. A lot of times I do like to blame the males. A lot of times I blame myself for the heat in the males, because a lot of times I assume I'm cooking sperm with species, and I learn the hard way sometimes. Skinks this year, I think last year, 2 seasons ago, I had deformed babies. Not a lot, but they weren't not deformed. How about this? They were being born weak, and they couldn't even break out of the embryonic sac on their own.
Failed to thrive, yeah.
Failed to thrive. And I had X amount of litters like that year, which I thought was peculiar, and I started blaming my hotspot maybe not being hot enough. So instead of doing like a small sample size, I just changed everything one year, brought the temperatures up a little higher and bred everything, and I had the most slug outs I'd ever seen in a season for skink breeding in 12 years of doing it.
Yeah.
But too big an adjustment for not a good enough reason. So this year, all my males are at the lower part of the rack.
Yeah.
I kept my hotspot no hotter than 88. And once my breeding season was over, I then brought it up about 2 more degrees, and I think my hotspot's at like 94 now. And most of the females are hugging it. I was thinking about going a little higher, but I don't think it's necessary. I hear about some of the basking spots up to 100 degrees. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but for me doing rack systems, I think a lot of those 100-degree basking spots has the bulb involved, and I don't know why that's so different to me, but yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I'll admit I am completely ignorant to blue tongue breeding, so I assume you're right.
Logic, cooking sperm, too hot, too this, whatever.
Yeah, I know too hot is bad for males across the board, like no matter what species you're talking about, even us.
Yeah. So are you guys ambient for ball python breeding, or are you guys still doing belly heat?
We do belly heat, and right now they're on a night drop, so when it gets dark, you know, the photocell on the building goes off and all the heat goes off, and in the morning it kicks back on and we repeat.
And you found doing that properly cycles, and is that a year-round thing for you guys, or is that just to get them going?
That's just to get them going during the breeding season. We'll turn all the night drops off here in April, so like probably 1st of June, I think we turn those off. And because you know by the 1st of June, like pretty much everything that's going to happen is going to happen, you know, except for those like very latest girls that there's only a few dozen that I have to go keep up with until like October.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at now. Like I said, the season came to an abrupt stop. I think nothing's going to start happening again until like maybe September, probably October.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought about maybe throwing some like giant meals at them a couple weeks and seeing if that maybe changed anything. You know, I talk about it like there was a lot of seasons where we had the really large collection. I was feeding a lot of large mediums and large rats to a female, and I was only doing that every like 3 or 4 weeks. So every year they weren't having any more than like 9 to 11 meals if there was a bunch of small meals mixed in there.
Mm-hmm.
But I found as soon as I started doing those larger meals, like, man, things started going. And if that was all frozen thawed feeding, also, when
Yeah.
I was going through the building, if the female refused, I didn't worry about it. Like, but when she got turned on, it was always related to follicle development.
Right.
You guys do a pretty steady weekly meal. Or are you guys doing anything weird with your feeding habits?
Nothing too weird. We have so many snakes that um, we don't get a rat for every snake. We feed like one side of the room. We'll start feeding all the way as far as we can until we're out of rats. And then next week's rats show up. We start at the opposite end of the building and then go back across towards the middle again. So every other week, each animal has the opportunity to eat 1 to 2 rats. Because if it's enthusiastic enough, when the guys go back through to pull the rats, if there is a remaining rat, uh, and they have like unused rats with them, if that female looks like she wants another rat, they'll perk up and they'll come at you a little bit.
Yeah.
She'll get another rat.
A lot of the guys I talk to now say they'll feed them as many as they want. Like when they're turned on, they're ready to go. Just whatever they can take, give it to them.
We're feeding like a medium to large rat for a lot of the snakes, unless they're a younger, smaller snake.
Of course.
Then they're just getting a medium. But two, I find that 2 is good. I have seen where we've given an overzealous snake like 3 or 4, and it yaks them up because there was just too much going on, and it was too gluttonous.
That's fair.
So it's now a waste of energy of the snake. It's a waste of rats. It's a waste of the effort to clean the box and get it back to good and wash her off and get her recovered from that gurge, because that's a stressful thing on them. So
No, if
2 rats is good. 2 rats is plenty.
no 2 rats is plenty. I wouldn't go any further than that. And like you said, with those larger meals, of course, if I ran into one where I did get a regurge, changes the whole plan on feeding her. I'm going to go a
Yeah.
lot smaller meals. I got to wait a little while before I even consider doing another meal.
Yeah. If I find them, I mark the snake like 1 rat only, and then move on. And obviously that snake can't handle 2 foods, just
Well,
for whatever reason.
of course. I feel like we're talking like basic bitch stuff almost here. I don't know. The big operation thing is really fascinating to me because, like I said, you having a background in a little bit of factory work. When you do that and then you go to like a large scale snake operation, there's a lot of things you take from that one job that you can use in your other job, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Do you ever write your own systems in there, like create the way you do it, or does Mike have a way and you're like, man, it's your way, let's go?
Well, I'm doing most of the breeding plan, the moving of the males, the IDing of the babies, and so it's a lot of how I want to do it. And sometimes he'll come in and make a change and say, oh, hey, let's add this step. And it's like, hey, you want to add this step, but you realize that, like, this is a first world problem, but he wanted me this year to date when I move the male to this female. So I'm moving, let's say, a lavender leopard blackhead to a het lavender on March the 14th. So I just write 14 because, whatever, it's fine.
Yeah.
Now, it doesn't sound like a big deal until you realize I'm writing it 500 times.
Yeah.
If you write 14 500 times, it actually takes a long time.
No.
So it's exponentially adding to my workload, even though it seems like a little mundane detail. But if you do that little mundane detail 500 times, that's kind of a long time.
No, for sure. And, that's another thing where I did a lot of color coding. Like every month it'd be a different color round sticker that would go in the tub. And if I see a female doesn't some reason have that color sticker within a 30-day period, of course, of that month, I'll make sure to get a male in there because clearly I've slipped on something. So again,
Right.
that's where I like colors to kind of keep me focused.
We have Reptiscan because we've been using Reptiscan for 14 years pretty much since its inception, and we have the clutch dates from the year before on the female's box. So, like Justin said in a video, it's about 7 months from when we start making sure that the new male is going with the female 7 months prior to her previous lay date, as long as it was from the year before. Now, if she skipped a year or 2 or 3, they can reset a little bit and they may not adhere to that schedule. It could be really close, or it might be several months different.
Yep.
But that 7 month thing, if a girl laid in November, I'm not worried about putting a male with her, in October. It's way too soon.
No, of course. Like you said, if you skip a year or 2 years with a female, you can completely reset it. I think I've had females lay in June that I've later got to lay in like December.
Yeah.
And that was mostly food intake. And again, we did a lot of ambient in the place. And I think that really made the seasons all over the place, man, which I kind of loved. But it was also, like you said, a lot more work when you got to breed them year round.
Right.
Overdo my male certain times of the year, can't use for other times of the year. You need a lot more males if you're going year round.
Yes. And we're not going year round, and except for a few sections, like I've got like 40 banana pied and banana pied combos. I've got another 40 or 50 banana clown and banana clown combos. That's like the banana clown production, and the banana pied production rests on those 50 males. But, let's pick something a little more obscure, lavender, leopard, albino, clown, something like that. That I need 2 of those. I need at least 2. I can't rely on one because something can happen. He can get overworked. He could crash prematurely, and I've got to baby him for a couple months to get him back on track.
Yeah.
Something like that. I don't like betting the farm on one male, so I like to have at least 2 of everything.
No, and I agree with that. And I have tried just doing the one male thing, and I don't think it works out for a little while. But like I said, there's not really anything long term with that. You always need a backup.
Gotta have a backup. The male's first job is to make his replacement or his backup.
Fair. Same thing with boas. Like, I remember, I think it was like the Jeremy Stone DVD did like years ago,
Mhm.
and he had said he prefers a 2 male to 1 female ratio. And honestly, if you want to get above like 50 or 60% success rate in boas, it's not a bad idea to have that extra male.
Right. Yeah, because you can't spread a male boa like we do a ball python, right?
It's like a yes and a no on that. I think with the ultrasound, yes.
Strategically breeding exactly when you need to.
Yeah, but also not being too reliant, because if you wait too long, the female gets too developed, and that introduction of the male, if he doesn't get a quick enough lock, will still stimulate her to keep on growing fast, and you might get a slug out.
No.
You know what, honestly, when it comes to follicle stuff in bows, it's very similar to ball pythons. I know you guys don't use the ultrasound, but they sit at 6 for a long time. Peas, don't worry about it. Then all of a sudden they're at like 10 millimeters. They can hold that for a few months without seeing a male. But then you might go in there and you're suddenly at 15 or 18 abruptly,
Right.
even without showing a male in there. So maybe around 10 is a good time to get a male in. If you happen to notice her at 12 to 15, I think that's an even better time, because then you're not going to overuse your male. I had a male with a female for almost 2 months when she was at 10 millimeters at the introduction. Still at 10 millimeters right now.
Wow.
That was a lot of work for a male to not even get her to build at all. So the other side of 10, yes. The other side of 15, you may run into some slug outs.
So just a few millimeters difference is sitting for months versus too late.
Sometimes, but also you got to remember, there's always all the argument with courtship, but I think a lot of those courtship conversations back in the day were based on seasons that maybe our animals weren't on. And I think we were putting our male boas in with our females in August, which was early to some people. Like Vin Russo hasn't had a litter on the ground yet. I was putting litters on the ground when he was doing first pairings, I want to say, this year.
Right.
So they're going to cycle, like I said, when they're going to cycle, I know he does it with food cycling. I do a little bit of food cycling, but now I really rely on the ultrasound. I'll be straight with you. And like I said, Tony Antonucci would talk about waiting until I think 15 to 18 introduce. But like I said, I think he ran into slug outs because of it. And again, if the male is a shitty breeder, it's not going to matter. I threw myself off with just muttering around about a bunch of things, but I think what we were trying to talk about there was, I think when that female is giving off that pheromone, if it's a good breeder male, when she's at 12 to 15, I think he's going to show interest. I think you're going to get a lock really quick.
He'll get after it.
I don't think it's going to be like a month or two of courtship.
Right.
Courtship was him trying to get her to develop follicles. And another thing, too, I talk about with boas, it being a year-round process, even if you don't ultrasound, I always encourage to put the male in the first of every month until he really starts showing her attention. If you put a male in there for 2 or 3 days and he's in this corner and she's in that corner,
no, nothing to do with it.
Yeah. But introducing that male once a month may get her to start actually building follicles just from having a male in the area.
Right.
So
that's what we do with Retics.
Okay.
Let her know that there's a viable male in the area. So if you do want to breed, like, it's okay. Like, he'll be back and, he can do the job.
So that was actually when you brought up the retic breeding earlier. I wanted to ask you, I didn't. You talked about how as a female is a small window and one lock is usually enough.
Yeah, I think so.
How are you identifying that window?
Just really lucky.
Okay.
And, it's we were still moving the males often, daily or every other day, but they weren't always locking. But you could tell when that was the good breeding, and then you could see her, just in the next few days, like, start getting fluffy, and like, you could feel the follicles, progressing from where they were before.
Okay, tight. So it's not like you guys are waiting for him to wrap a water bowl or something like that. You're like, man, let's get that male in there. You're not palpitating
No.
or anything like that.
I think, what were we doing? Like, in October, I think we were just starting to move males and see how females were responding. But a lot of times, the female can tell you a lot just by how she lives, how they respond to food, or because if she just hammers food, she is probably not interested. And another thing they do is they'll wag their tail and pee everywhere. And ball pythons, that's great. That means she's interested. In Retics, it means the exact opposite, that she just wants nothing to do with him at all. And so they'll wag the tail and pee, and they'll musk on him and just get him out of my cage. And if they do that, just yank him right away. There's no point in being there. But the very next day, they can breed because she has changed her mind in one day.
But how do you know that?
You just gotta move. You move the male in. You watch them because he's telling you a lot and she's telling you a lot by how they react to each other.
Yeah.
And the first thing is food. If she doesn't want to eat, okay, you need to start doing something. And now you throw in the male, and is it time? Is she going to let him? Is she going to wag? Is he going to throw coils? Smell is very important. If she smells right, he's going to go in and start shoving shit around, and he'll throw coils and arches and stuff. And, like, you want to see that stuff. And he'll get real, like, he can be 10 feet long and he's shoving around like a 17-foot, 100-pound female. Like, he's the boss.
Yeah. Okay.
You just got to read them.
That's fair. I don't even know if I have another retic question after that.
Is that the conclusion of your retic questions for today?
I don't know, man. You know, I got to start writing retic questions because I really don't have enough retic conversations. I love you brought up Shane earlier because honestly, he's one of my favorite breeders because I just love that
Shane's
orange
awesome.
stuff he makes.
Great,
Love that stuff.
great dude.
And I really like the Ocelot project, of course, which I think everyone should love that project. Very unique
They are
pattern.
stunning,
And
stunning. Aubrey's doing some great stuff with that.
I don't
And
know.
now it's in some other hands too, but Aubrey's the founder on that deal.
Just that head pattern because they already have that like defined like scale structure on their head, but you get those like black lines in between it that really like make that pop and those yellow eyes, man.
Yep, they're great. I love them.
So, is the goal for the retic community to put everything into dwarfs and try to make them smaller, or is there still like the true let's keep them big?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes to all of those. It depends on who you talk to, and I think personally, my opinion, and having once been heavily involved in the retic market, I think size is the biggest drawback of anybody that might want to own a retic.
Of course.
And now these guys are finding out that, these insular forms of retic, the super dwarfs like Kalatoa, Kayawati, Madu, all these other localities, they came in small. We had 6-7 foot retics that would lay eggs because they came in gravid. So it's the size of a black rat snake sitting on eggs that are no bigger than a ball python egg, and those were adult mature retics, obviously, because it just laid eggs.
Yeah.
But now they are taking the same super dwarf or Kalatoa, Kayawati, whatever, Jamps are a bigger dwarf, but they're feeding the ever-loving piss out of these snakes and going, oh, look, I can get my super dwarf 12 feet long or 15 feet long or whatever. It's like, yeah, because you are just jamming it with so much food. They don't have access to large prey where they are. Jampia, Kayawati, Madu, Kalatoa, they're all very small islands. Very small. They don't have any megafauna. They don't have any large animals for these things to prey on. Like, imagine a seagull or a Arctic tern or some bird like duck sized being like the biggest thing that this animal ever could possibly encounter to eat. It doesn't need to be any bigger than it is to eat a seagull. So they get 6-7 feet long in the wild. They don't need to be bigger. But when you feed a retic, even a mainland, you can keep a mainland small if you never give them rabbits. If you gave that snake just as many jumbo rats or guinea pigs as it needed, you would wind up with like a 12 or 14 foot retic that's very happy at that medium size. It's funny that that's medium, but it is. But once you start giving that snake rabbits, 5 pound rabbits, 10 pound rabbits, they just explode in growth and they get big. They can keep them at a moderate size, but the stigma of the retic and in the retic community is feed it, feed it, feed it, let it grow, let it grow. Like, let's go, let's get it big.
Yeah.
Just do it moderately, and you have a animal that's easily maintained, and you don't have to get a Kalatoa to be 14 feet long.
So with the mainland stuff, though, is there a raise them slower, breed them smaller logic in that community? Because we
I
have
don't
that
know.
now.
I've personally got 10 retics to be 8 to 10 feet in a year without trying very hard. Just like a nice weekly food regimen, and like they want to eat, they want to grow, especially a mainland. It's not hard to get them 10 feet long in year and a half.
Yeah, no, we that old issue of Reptile magazine where Kevin McCurley had the retic article. I think it had the orange golden child on the cover.
Uh-huh.
He in that article, I want to say, talks about them growing anywhere from 9 to 12 feet in a single year.
Yeah.
And without super power feeding anyway, just simply feeding them, they're going to get big.
Yeah, like it's not hard to get a retic, like you said, 8, 10. I think 12 is a little bit of a stretch, but 10, not hard to do in a calendar year.
Yeah, and I don't think he meant like a newborn to 12 feet in a year. I might have been like a year animal to the second year, maybe.
Yeah.
I'll have to go back and read the article again. I know I have that issue still, but no, I think it's always fascinating the way this industry has worked over the years because, we found a way of doing it that we assumed the way it was doing it, but then we find out later there's other ways of doing it that might be better off. And, where I talk about the boas, raising them a lot slower and breeding them smaller and having successful litters, less females rolling, they just tend, in my opinion, they do better.
Right.
Retics, if I could do that with retics, I might own a couple retics, or maybe I should just get dwarf retics.
I think a 12 to 15 foot retic that's 3, 5, 6 years old can be a very happy, healthy adult animal. They don't have to be just huge. They don't have to be gigantic to do what they do. They're not meant to be fat. I've told many people over the years, Retics are the race cars of the jungle. They're fast, they're lean. There's videos of them like hiking up trees like spooky fast. I've seen big snakes move just silly fast that like you wouldn't think it could go that fast, but they do. They're meant to be able to do that. This is an apex predator where they come from. It shouldn't be a big fat sausage.
No, none of this stuff should be. We make it that way,
Right.
in my opinion. But it's easier to remember to feed something once a week than every 10 days. So I find that people like that every 7 schedule, and that's fine. But me, I like to space things out. Sometimes every 2 weeks for certain things. Sometimes I like to fast for like a month, month and a half. Like I'm always kind of changing things up, and sometimes I don't even know why. I'll be honest. Like sometimes I'm a little over the place, and I kind of blame these conversations sometimes. There's so many unique conversations with people, and I hear about how they do it. It makes me change things in mind that was not broken. And I
Right.
don't know why I do that. And I say it all the time, but I hear all these new things, and I'm like, I want to try it that way now. I got to get away from that. There's some
But
great
if,
ideas out there,
if
but
what you're doing is working, don't change it.
I,
Like I when I listen to the in the trees Tuesdays, like MJ talks about making too many changes too often for the green tree pythons, and like it takes them a long time to get settled into this routine, and then bam, you change the routine again. So like your animals are constantly like readjusting to your new routine. Just if it's working, fine tuning and tweaking is fine, but don't make like big drastic changes unless you really need to, like if you're seriously fucking up or something.
when I make big changes, it's me going in a little too overconfident again on something I heard from somebody else
Yeah.
that worked for them. And really, sometimes that's just to up the percentage of my success by a little bit, and it could actually bring my percentage way down. And like I said, I like failing sometimes, tweaking things, but I'm getting too old to fail anymore, man. Like, I gotta just get shit going the way it needs to be.
We need just success after success after success, or I become unemployed.
Exactly. Like I said, I've got the expenses down a little bit, but my electrical bills are kicking my ass. I know we talk about it, but man, this little town I live in, they rape you on electric. Like 1,800 square feet, $2,000 for my first electrical bill.
Shit monkeys.
Yeah, once you get past a certain amount of kilowatts, they start adding more charges, adding more charges, adding more charges.
Jeez.
They don't seem to mind. I asked them if it was okay. They said it was fine, but man,
It's fine as long as they get paid. It's fine.
as long as they get paid. I'm gonna have to make changes. I may have to move species around the building a little bit next year. The back half runs on electric for the heating system. The front half is gas. The back half, I think, is costing me a lot of that money. I think during the winter time when I got in there, I was having to keep it so hot.
Yeah.
And I was only trying to keep it at 78. Man, that fucking electrical bill. And I even had like a backup space heater going on a Renko. I had, yeah, it shouldn't have been as high as it was. I've been talking about this for weeks, but like, I don't want to draw a lot of attention when I'm doing there. So I'm not going to be like, well, come by and figure out what I'm doing wrong. Like, see if there's a loose wire or something.
Where can I conserve energy?
Yeah,
So don't mind that, Boa.
Yeah, exactly. But somebody ripped one of the garbage bags open the other day because the dumpster's like right out on the road.
Mhm.
And I don't know if it was a homeless person looking for something or if the town thinks I'm maybe growing pot at this point.
Right.
But I'm sure they're leaning towards the pot thing. I dress down in town. I don't wear my flamboyant, bright T-shirts like I do when you see me at the shows.
Right.
I really fit in. I blend the fuck in, I guess is the way I put it. And I like keeping it that way.
That's good. Below the radar is always good.
Always good below. But I'm almost a little too below sometimes. Like, my truck is extra shitty right now. Like, you know what it's like to have a shitty vehicle, right?
Oh yeah, mine's a hunk of crap.
Yeah. So like, mine's rough. Maybe to the point where now I'm maybe drawing too much attention to myself. I might have to like fix it just a little bit is the problem. I'm not blending in the way I feel like I need to. But all right, now we're just muttering. But how about this? You know, I got you on for one. I know I'm going to want to bring you on for another because I was going to have William Philippek come out for one.
Yep.
I'm trying to be a little greedy right now. I haven't done one-on-one conversations in so long. I kind of want a couple one-on-ones if that made sense.
Sure.
But William, it would have been a different conversation. I think we'd have been talking about weirder pythons if we had Will with us.
Yeah, more obscure pythonage.
Yeah, obscure. I should use the word obscure, not weird, because I don't really find him weird. I love all the stuff he works with. Honestly, we're talking facilities, so this is where we have like 9 goodbyes and we just keep going. But William's place that him and his father put together,
Uh-huh.
man, it's so beautiful. Lab settings, hoses from the ceiling,
Nice.
beautiful floors. Everything's pure white. He still has a lot of room he can expand into there. Really love his place, and again, I really love the diversity of his collection. Whenever I want something new, I want 10 or 15 of it.
Right.
He's got the willpower of just 1 or 2.
Yeah.
So because of that, he's got 10 or 15 things to look at, where I've got 15 of one thing to look at. So love that about his collection.
Definitely.
Yeah. Can you hear me wheezing, by the way?
No.
I just wanted to make sure. So I get asthma every night around 10 now. Just kicks in. All of a sudden I got asthma. I'm using inhalers now. Just hit me. No idea what happened.
Huh. Well, that's unfortunate. I hate that.
Yeah. I might have had COVID this past year. I've never done a COVID test. We all get sick every once in a while, so I just don't worry about it.
Yeah.
I was on my deathbed that one time though. Like late 2019, I want to say, or maybe it was early 2020 before things got real. I went to Florida and came home. I threw up. I lost weight. I mean, it was the sickest I've ever been in my entire life.
You single-handedly brought the Rona to Missouri.
Maybe. But after that, I wasn't sick for like 3 years.
Wow.
Like, just nothing at all. And I'm not cautious, buddy. I touch my face a lot. So there were tons of opportunities to get it. Luckily, I didn't get it. Now I have no idea what we're talking about anymore. So,
well, time to wrap it up then.
I'm going to do a couple pre-questions next time, just in case runs any issues. But honestly, I thought it went smooth, man. I love talking to you.
You as well. Like, it's 2 hours and 33 minutes. It's flown by, like a bird.
Always flies by, honestly. But yeah, nonetheless, we're definitely going to do this again. I say that to everybody, but I mean it. We're going to do this again. Yep. And I'm going to check my show schedule. I'm sure there's a show me in Oklahoma City coming up soon because there is always one around herping season.
Probably. Yeah.
Maybe. So if there is, Me and Mike Schultz will give you a call. We'll pick you up. We'll go road cruising together.
Yes, definitely down for that for sure.
Right, tight. Well, Jeff, I honestly appreciate you.
I appreciate you having me on.
No, of course, and
I'm flattered.
oh, you shouldn't be flattered, man. You know what the problem is? You're an extremely knowledgeable guy with great stories. I could have done better. I didn't know your good stories. I spent a lot of time on. I'm always really fascinated by a big operation. So when I hear about that kind of stuff, I want to hear about the technical side of it. But we're going more story time next time, like I promised everybody. There's a lot of good things you bring to the table in the hobby.
Well, we'll see. We'll see how good they are in the future.
No pressure, buddy. No pressure. But yeah, it's gonna be good.
Never.
So yeah, guys, if you stuck around this long, take a moment, like and subscribe. That's very important to MJ. He's got to see those numbers get the fuck up there a little bit.
Watch the video, join USARK, strengthen numbers.
Strengthen numbers, yeah.
All the things. They help save our hobby on the daily. Phil is a machine working for us tirelessly.
Yep. Honestly, Phil is a machine. Asthma, I couldn't, that was all I could say because I couldn't breathe anymore. I'm going to hit that inhaler in a second. I love this, Jeff. Like I said, let me come visit you in a couple weeks, and we'll do this again in the next couple months.
I'm down. All right.
Appreciate you as always. Appreciate everybody who stuck around this long. Later, bud.
See ya.